In Peppa's world, the only pigs around her are her own relatives, and that leads to mysteries most fans don't even realize exist.
It's a boy.
Do you know every single member of Peppa's family and the secrets that surround them? At the beginning of 2025, Mummy Pig announced that she's pregnant, and now that everyone knows about it, a bunch of mysteries have started popping up online, and the biggest one is about the gender of the new little piglet. The most likely option is that it's going to be a girl based on something Peppa said. In the episode The Baby, our main character says she hopes the new babies will be girls. That could be a clue that Peppa's getting a little sister, but not just because of that. The truth is, we already know what Peppa is like with a baby brother, and that's why we think it's time to see how she handles having a little girl to look after. The two of them could have totally different kinds of fun, just because they're both girls, and that could make the show even more entertaining. There's a theory going around online that the new character will be named Peggy, since it sounds a lot like Peppa, and together they'd make the ultimate fun team. The other possibility is that it's going to be a boy, and let's make one thing clear, fans still don't know anything because the baby is due between June and July of 2025. If the new pig family baby turns out to be a boy, then George will suddenly become a very important big brother. Does that mean those two will team up and leave Peppa out? One thing's for sure, Peppa would not be happy to get another little brother, since she's already said she wanted the baby to be a girl. There's a possibility in the Peppa universe that almost no one's thought of. What if she has great-grandparents? This question comes up because of Aunt Dottie. One fact about this character is that Mummy Pig's sister left home when she was still very young. She doesn't even have the same British accent as the other people in Peppa's town, and based on Madame Gazelle's time capsule video, we know Dottie didn't go to school with the other kids back then. That makes us think that she moved away to live with someone in the US, and the only person that could have taken her in would have been her grandmother, which would make her Peppa's great-grandmother. Now let's think about how Peppa's world works. All the characters who show up regularly are connected to a family. Richard is Rebecca Rabbit's brother, and both are children of Mummy Rabbit, who is Grandpa Rabbit's daughter. If Aunt Dottie is Mummy Pig's sister, and one of them left to live with relatives in America, then the only possible person it could have been is Granny Pig's mother. It's unclear whether this character is still alive, but there's no doubt she existed at some point. Could she still be living in the US with Aunt Dottie? Speaking of Mummy Pig's sister, Aunt Dottie is full of mysteries, and one of the biggest is that she gave Peppa and George a pretty dangerous gift. She's been living in the US for years and came back to the UK to celebrate Thanksgiving with her family, which makes no sense because Brits don't even celebrate that holiday. In the episode Glitter Wheels Horsey, she gave the kids a wheeled toy that could have caused a serious accident, and she definitely knew it. Dottie grew up in Peppa's town, so she knew those steep hills were a bad mix with anything that rolls. It's always been a mystery why she'd do something so risky, but maybe one day she'll return and explain it all. One of Peppa's most mysterious relatives is Auntie Pig, Chloe and baby Alexander's mom. She's got a secret that a lot of fans haven't caught on to. She's from a third pig family that we've never seen, and that makes us wonder, where are all the other pigs? Let's break this mystery down. Granny and Grandpa Pig are the parents of Aunt Dottie and Mummy Pig. That's the first pig family. Daddy Pig and Uncle Pig are brothers. That's the second pig family. But Auntie Pig, since she's married to Uncle Pig, must come from a third pig family that's never been shown. And no, she's not related to Mummy Pig. So that leaves a big mystery, right? In the entire Peppa world, there are no other pigs. Are they still alive? So many questions and no answers. Would you want to be a part of Peppa's family? Drop a hashtag pig in the comments so we can meet ya! Uncle Pig is Chloe and baby Alexander's dad. In the Puppet Theater episode, we find out he really loves to take naps after lunch. One interesting thing about him is that he doesn't wear glasses, unlike his brother Daddy Pig, who always needs them to see properly. That makes us think at least one of their parents had bad eyesight while the other one saw just fine. Uncle Pig is super skilled when it comes to building things, just like Daddy Pig, who's an architect. We know this because in the Puppet episode, Chloe says her dad built the whole theater for her. He's also a great cook, or at least when it comes to pies. In the Thanksgiving episode, he makes a pumpkin pie to welcome Aunt Dottie. One background character who appears in a few episodes is a little pony named Penny Pony, and yes, that's her official name. But how did we find out the name of a character who only appears in the background? Simple, she was originally supposed to be a major character, but she ended up being replaced by Pedro Pony. That's right, Pedro was originally going to be a girl. Since that idea was scrapped, they decided to reuse this early version of Pedro as a background character. Still, that doesn't mean Penny couldn't become important in the Peppa Pig universe. She could easily be Pedro's cousin, and an episode focusing on her would be amazing. But for now, we have no idea what became of Penny after she was replaced. If you thought Penny was the only possible relative of Pedro Pony, think again. Soft Play is one of those episodes where we see tons of characters, as George's best friend's birthday party was packed with little kids. Among them, there's a little pony girl in a yellow dress playing in the ball pit with the others. We don't know anything about her, but Peppa fans have decided to call her Pearl Pony. Since she's a pony, the first thing everyone assumes is that she's another mysterious relative of Pedro. Some think she might be his younger sister, but if that were the case, why is she barely mentioned? The most likely answer is that she's not his sister, but a cousin, or something similar, who lives outside of town and only visits occasionally. Like any kid, she loves playing in a ball pit and eating cake, so she probably traveled to town for Richard Rabbit's birthday party as a special guest. Who hasn't gone to a stranger's party just to enjoy free food? And if Pearl is Pedro's cousin, then she's probably Penny's sister too. Could we one day see these two take center stage together? Another background character you might spot in the crowd from time to time is Miss Bear, who has never had much focus in the series. Her first appearance was in the episode Mr. Potato Comes to Town, where she can be seen among the rest of the cast, eagerly waiting for Mr. Potato's arrival. You can also find her in the biggest muddy puddle in the world when the entire town gets flooded. Miss Bear is one of the characters hitching a ride on Grandpa Dog's boat. She gets a bit more attention in the episode Once Upon a Time, where we learn that she lives in a cabin in the woods and is the mother of Belinda Bear, as well as the wife of Mr. Bear. Not to be confused with Dr. Brown Bear, since one wears glasses and the other doesn't. In fact, many fans theorize that Dr. Brown Bear might be her brother. Now, one character who is truly mysterious is without a doubt the young cow who appears in Mr. Potato's Christmas show. She's seen in the audience watching Mr. Potatoes play along with the other kids, and that brief appearance was enough to spark theories about her origins. The Peppa Pig fandom decided to call her Carol, though her real name is unknown. The most popular theory is that she's Mrs. Cow's niece. Others believe she could be Mr. Bull's daughter from a previous relationship before he married Mrs. Cow. However, the first theory makes more sense, as Mr. Bull has never mentioned having a daughter, which is strange considering that's a pretty important detail. He has appeared in many episodes, so if he had a daughter, he probably would have mentioned her at some point. Unless, of course, Mr. Bull went through a divorce and his ex-wife has full custody. In that case, it would make sense why he never brings it up. If you think these characters should get more attention in Peppa Pig so their mysteries can finally be revealed, drop a comment below with #mystery. Another mysterious character in the same scene is a black kitten sitting next to Carol Cow, whom we've decided to call Charles Cat. He might be Candy Cat's cousin. It's hard to think of him as her brother since they have different fur colors and have never been seen together, but nothing stops them from being more distant relatives. In fact, he might even be related to another mysterious character, who appeared in Mandy Mouse's birthday, running around the cheese-themed amusement park where the episode takes place. She was on screen for just a few moments, but that was enough for fans to start calling her Claire Cat and even making fan art of her. The Peppa Pig fandom really has no limits. The most popular theory is that she's Candy's niece, which would mean Candy has an older sibling who is Claire's parent. As for Charles Cat, he could easily be Claire's brother. After all, the two look quite similar. Due to his age, Grampy Rabbit is very experienced and knows how to build all kinds of different inventions. He also seems to have lived numerous adventures since he tells so many stories to his friends that it can get a bit annoying. I imagine a lot of characters think his stories are completely made up, but I bet they're all true. Still, he only ranks 10th on the list of the most powerful Peppa Pig characters and wouldn't stand a chance against the one in first place. I guarantee that it's a character with unimaginable power and is very likely behind all the events in the series. The Tooth Fairy hasn't appeared much in Peppa Pig, but she definitely deserves a spot on this list simply because she's a magical entity. We know she can fly and teleport, but it's very likely she has other magical abilities as well. After all, fairies are known for their special connection to nature and magic, putting her on a higher level than most characters in Peppa Pig. Will other fairies appear at some point in the series? Maybe the Tooth Fairy's sister is a wish-granting fairy for Peppa, much like Cinderella's fairy godmother. I think that would be so much fun. Daddy Pig is one of the main characters in the series, as he's Peppa's father. He's also the most powerful member of the pig family because he has very strong legs. Because of this, Daddy Pig can jump to great heights without much effort, making him the world champion in muddy puddle jumping. I don't think any human could survive if Daddy Pig jumped to the clouds and landed on them, which already makes him more powerful than any real person. It's very likely that Peppa will surpass her father in the future since she's also great at jumping in muddy puddles. Will we see that happen in the series? I think that would be awesome. Mr. Fox may not be an adventurer like Grampy Rabbit or have super strong legs like Daddy Pig, but he has a very powerful ability because his van holds every possible item, except fuel. That means Mr. Fox is prepared for every possible situation as long as he's got his van. If you think about it, he might have Grampy Rabbit's inventions inside his van, and even weapons like swords, machine guns, and bazookas. This already makes him more powerful than any soldier since he has more weapons than anyone else. And not to mention the tools that could help him get out of any tricky situation, as his van surely holds something that will help no matter the problem he's dealing with. And to think that, even so, he's nowhere near the most powerful character in Peppa Pig. Now, if you're really a Peppa Pig fan, drop a comment below with #Fox so we know how many subscribers are fans of this amazing show. Alright, we've talked about power in the form of adventure experience, physical strength for jumping, and even the amount of resources like weapons and tools. But another crucial type of power is social influence, something Mr. Potato has plenty of. As a TV host, Mr. Potato is super popular with all the characters in the series, making him incredibly influential. This kind of skill can be way more useful than, say, being a martial arts master. Have you ever thought about what would happen if you made Mr. Potato mad and he started telling everyone you're annoying? Your social standing would take a hit, and most people would start hating you. If he went further and falsely accused you of hitting him, you'd probably have to run from an unstoppable army of hardcore fans. Luckily, he's not a compulsive liar. Madame Gazelle seems like just the cool teacher of Peppa and her friends, but if you pay closer attention, you'll see she's so much more. Throughout the animated series, there are subtle hints that Peppa's teacher isn't quite normal. She once hit a ball so hard with a bat that it flew far away, and she also seems way older than she should be. She even taught the parents of her current students when they were kids, yet she hasn't aged a day since then. But the biggest proof that Madame Gazelle is something else entirely is the fact that her reflection never shows up anywhere. All these clues point to one undeniable conclusion: she's a vampire. That small detail is enough to land her this spot, since vampires are incredibly powerful supernatural beings in all the movies, shows, and cartoons they appear in. She's definitely super strong, but she's still not close to the top of this list. If you're still not convinced she's a vampire, we have a video with tons more evidence proving what species Madame Gazelle really is. The Queen was another character that had to make this list for one simple reason: she's literally the Queen of England. Yep, since the show is British, Peppa even had the chance to meet the Queen. The Queen doesn't have any superpowers or special traits, and she's far from being a mystical creature. However, she does possess something that can be way more threatening: immense social and political influence. She's like Mr. Potato, but multiplied by 1,000. Trying to harm the Queen and succeeding would be nearly impossible, considering she has tons of highly trained guards ready to do whatever it takes to protect her life. Plus, she's got unimaginable wealth and can buy anything she wants. Honestly, I think that's more advantageous than most powers. Imagine having enough money to buy all the games you could ever want, and I could pay a company to build a cinema in my house. Then nothing would stop me from spending all day watching Peppa and other cartoons on a massive screen while munching on popcorn. One of the most mysterious characters in Peppa Pig is the daughter of Mrs. Cow and Mr. Bull. We know her name is Claire Cow, and she doesn't go to Peppa's school, but this little cow shows up in several episodes. In the Children's Festival episode, she's on the Ferris wheel with her mom. She also shows up in New York City, right in the middle of the famous Times Square. She's walking on the sidewalk with her mom next to a bus. Oh, and of course, she also appears in Mr. Potato's theater play. She's sitting in the front row, which is how we know she doesn't go to Peppa's school. Because at the start of the episode, we see Madame Gazelle taking the students on the bus, and there's no little cow with them. Pretty cool, right? In almost 400 episodes of the series, Susie Sheep appears in many of them, but she doesn't always talk to her best friend Peppa. In the Children's Festival episode, she even goes on a few adventures with the main character, but before that, we already knew Susie was playing in the park with the other kids. In this scene, Susie and her mom walk past Peppa's family, but they don't talk. Don't worry though, the girls aren't fighting, it's just that they haven't seen each other yet. In this same episode, we can see that Danny Dog is playing on the slide, but he doesn't talk to Peppa at any point. He probably just kept playing on his own without worrying about the others, and that's totally fine. It's always fun to see characters show up in the story, even if they're not part of the main adventure. That kind of detail makes the show even better, don't you think? One of the most important characters in the Peppa universe is Mandy Mouse. That's because she uses a wheelchair and helps younger viewers learn more about people who have trouble moving around. Mandy is with her mom, Mrs. Mouse, and they're having fun at the festival. This episode has tons of hidden characters, and this little mouse's scene is awesome because it shows that people can totally have fun, even in a wheelchair. Heart. You might have already noticed that both Peppa and George, along with their parents, have a circular-shaped mark on their cheeks, but that's a pattern Evie has broken. She also has a mark on her face, but hers is shaped like a heart, which is way more unique, right? The fact that she's the only one with a different mark, and that it happens to be this specific shape, is kind of poetic because it shows how Evie will bring so much more love to the pig family. This already shows how much everyone will truly adore her, not just Mom and Dad, but also Peppa and George. And of course, it also means that the little one will grow into an even more loving person as she gets older. We'll never see her fighting over silly things like her older siblings because she'll avoid unnecessary conflicts at all costs. It's going to be amazing to see this little character grow up, right? She's set to become one of the coolest characters in the show. Duck. George is obsessed with dinosaurs, and all of the show's more than 300 episodes have made that super clear. Peppa, on the other hand, really loves her teddy bear. Evie will also have a favorite animal, and we already know what it's going to be. A duck. After all, her bib is decorated with a drawing of one, and even her official logo features the little creature. So it's pretty obvious that she's going to have a strong preference for this animal. We'll all definitely love seeing Evie getting a duck toy, which is probably going to be one of the very first things that happens after her birth. Will she be as obsessed with ducks as George is with dinosaurs? Maybe even more, since she'll be super young and won't know much else about the world yet, and we all know how little kids get really attached to their favorite toys. You know what else will be great to see? The little girl playing with her duck while George plays with his dinosaur. When you think about it, they'll have a stronger bond than we could have ever imagined. Name. No one expected Peppa's little sister to be named Evie, but the name isn't random. It's actually a tribute to Mommy Pig's aunt, who has that exact same name. The reason they share the same name is probably because the little one resembles her great aunt. The question is, will we ever get to see the original Evie at some point in the animated series or not? It would be really cool if she showed up to visit the little piglet, but that might be impossible if the great aunt has already passed away, which would explain why she's never appeared on the show. Regardless, this name is just perfect for the girl because Evie comes from Hebrew and is a different version of Eve, the first woman created by God according to Christianity. And going even further, you'll realize that the name means nothing less than life. And what is the new little one, if not a new life that has just joined the pig family? The show's production team really thought of everything when creating this new character, didn't they? No one would have guessed that she'd have so many deep details. And if you love the baby's name as much as we do, drop a comment below, #Evie. Birth date. The little girl's birth date is one that will stay forever etched in our minds because it happened on May 20th, a day that seemed as normal as any other. No one expected that one of the best pieces of news in the animation world would arrive to fill us with joy. However, we probably could have seen it coming before we were surprised, because her birth date was already a pretty special day, and there are actually several reasons for that, surprisingly enough. For example, on May 20th, 2025, Christians celebrated the Feast of the Ascension of Jesus Christ, which happens exactly 40 days after Easter. We're talking about a hugely important religious date. It's pretty poetic that Evie was born right on the day when Christianity's Messiah completely ended his mortal life and returned to paradise. Okay, so two really important things happened on that day in 2025, but there have been other times when this date was totally unique. Want an even more unexpected example? You don't even need to wait. On this very same day, but 416 years ago, William Shakespeare published his sonnets for the very first time in London. He's one of the greatest literary figures in all of history, and the fact that his legacy began on this date doesn't really feel like a coincidence. Could it be that Evie will follow a musical path when she grows up, and this little clue was left here for most fans to only notice much later? Weight. Even the new little piglet's weight and height were revealed. Or, well, kind of, because the explanation wasn't exactly crystal clear. According to what was shared, little Evie is as tall as 4 apples stacked one on top of the other, and her weight is equivalent to 8 little bundles of affection. That doesn't really tell us much, does it? Especially since affection isn't something physical that has weight. But that doesn't stop us from taking what we know less literally and using a little bit of math to come up with an interesting conclusion. Since we already said that affection doesn't have a weight, let's swap it out for something super affectionate, like a teddy bear. If Evie weighs as much as 8 teddy bears, and assuming each one weighs about half a kilo, not too light, not too heavy, that means she probably weighs around 4 kilos, the weight of a healthy and super adorable baby. Now, the apple thing is way easier to figure out, simply because food is a physical object with both height and weight, like any other item, unless you've got a ghost banana hiding in your house. Anyway, how big is an apple? The answer, about 10 centimeters. So, our dear Evie is probably around 40 centimeters tall. And that totally makes sense, since newborn babies usually measure just over 40 centimeters, like 43 or 45, and since the baby seems to be quite healthy, we can safely assume that's probably her case too. Peppa and George have always been used to getting all of their parents' attention, but that's one of the first things that's going to change once the new family member arrives, because he's going to need pretty much all of Mummy and Daddy Pig's attention. Babies always need a lot of care. Only someone really paying attention knows when they're hungry, when they want to play, or when they need the bathroom. Just kidding. Everyone knows they just go in their diapers, and let's be honest, no one around will be able to ignore the stinky smell. But that just shows how parents always need to keep an eye on babies, since they're the ones changing those dirty diapers. In other words, the parents are going to have zero time left for the older kids, and neither Peppa nor George is going to take it well, especially George, who's been the youngest until now and has been totally spoiled. Peppa already knows what it feels like to get less attention, so she might take it a bit better, but she'll still be annoyed since she's pretty spoiled too. This will make both of them feel kind of resentful toward the baby, to the point that they might start throwing passive-aggressive comments his way, which is honestly kind of ridiculous, since the poor little guy won't even know what they're saying. Of course, as time goes on, Peppa and George will eventually get used to it and stop whining, partly because they'll understand it's not the baby's fault, and also because as he gets older, he'll need less constant attention from their parents. But things will never go back to how they were. The entire dynamic of the pig family will change for good once that little piglet arrives. Nothing will ever be the same again. Don't believe it? As we already know, Daddy and Mummy Pig will be super busy taking care of the newest family member, but their attention alone might not be enough. After all, both of them work and still need to do everyday things like clean the house, go grocery shopping, and so on. During those times, the ones who'll have to step in and look after the baby will be his siblings. Yep, Peppa and George will probably end up taking care of their little brother all by themselves in at least one episode after he's born. But let's be honest, it's very likely to happen in lots of episodes from now on. And of course, kids taking care of younger kids equals total chaos. They won't know what to do with the baby's crying, and who knows how they'll handle it. But one thing's for sure, it won't be the recommended way. It's easy to picture an episode where they lose sight of the baby and have to find him before their parents get back. The one who will struggle the most with all of this will be Peppa, since she's the oldest and George still isn't used to being responsible. That'll leave her dealing with two disobedient brothers, when George should be the one helping her. But hey, as they say, if you're not helping, at least don't get in the way. But maybe Peppa and George will get lucky and won't have to take care of the baby. At least not if their parents decide to hire a babysitter to look after the piglet when needed. That would actually be the perfect chance to introduce a new character to the show. The babysitter could be someone we've never seen before, or maybe someone who's only ever been in the background. After all, a lot of Peppa Pig characters were just background extras before they finally got their moment to shine. If the show doesn't want to bring in someone new, Mummy Pig might just hire someone already in the cast. For example, Miss Rabbit. She basically has every job in the world already, so babysitter could easily be one more. Especially since her sister has a bunch of kids, and Miss Rabbit has probably helped out with them a few times. That means she's already got experience looking after little ones. Another great candidate for the role of super nanny is Mrs. Cow, since she works as a nurse and a firefighter. So yeah, she's the perfect person to care for a sick baby or stop an accident before it happens. And let's not forget, she apparently doesn't have kids of her own, yet. So maybe babysitting this piglet could even inspire her to become a mom someday. Imagine that! One thing that's definitely going to happen is the introduction of a brand new toy on the show, one that will become the new baby's absolute favorite. Since the first season, Peppa has had her beloved Teddy, and George has had Mr. Dinosaur. So it's pretty likely the new little piglet will follow that same tradition and get an inseparable toy buddy of his own. In fact, we're guessing there'll be a whole episode just about this. It'll probably start with the pig family heading to a toy store to buy the little guy a gift. Then he'll spot a toy on one of the shelves and fall in love with it instantly. If Peppa is the one who gets to name the toy, it'll probably be something like Bob or just another regular name. But if George has the honor, let's be honest, the toy will most likely be called Mr. Gorilla. And speaking of that, if Peppa has a teddy bear and George has a dinosaur, it makes perfect sense for the baby's toy to be an animal too. Maybe a gorilla, who knows? If you can't wait to meet Peppa's new little brother, drop a comment below with #LittlePiggy. Luckily, Mummy Pig is far from the only mom with kids on the show. Mummy Rabbit will definitely keep having more babies, unless Peppa ends up with 2 or 3 siblings instead of just one, which would be total chaos for the pigs. Even though the kids have already said they'd actually love it if 8 piglets showed up instead of just one, believe it or not, Daddy Pig kind of agreed until Mummy Pig gave him that don't even think about it look.
8 babies! 8 hate babies.
But the truth is, there are a lot of moms in town, and the arrival of a new baby could totally inspire them to start their own club, meeting up once a week to chat, relax, and let their kids run wild together. It would be awesome to see an episode where Mummy Pig takes her kids to the club and hangs out with the other moms while the little ones have fun and make a mess. Everyone is already pretty surprised just hearing that the Pig family is getting a new member, but the truth is, there's nothing confirming that Mummy Pig is having just one baby. She could very well be pregnant with twins and not even know it yet. That would explain, for example, why her belly was already looking so big when she decided to share her pregnancy with the world. That's the kind of belly you expect when someone's already several months in. It would be almost impossible to hide that for so long, but if there are two babies in there, she could still be in the early stages, and her belly only looks that big because it's holding both babies. And it's not like something like this hasn't happened before in the show. Mummy Rabbit went through a pregnancy that ended in the birth of two little ones, Rosie and Robbie. So yes, twins already exist in the Peppa Pig universe. You might be thinking, would they really repeat something like that? And honestly, it makes more sense than it seems at first, especially since the Rabbit family is weirdly similar to the Pig family. First off, Daddy Rabbit works at the same office as Daddy Pig, and even though we don't see many grandparents on the show, the two who show up the most are Grandpa Pig and Grandpa Rabbit. Both were sailors and are the fathers of the moms in each family. The paternal grandparents in both families don't appear on the show at all. In both families, the oldest child is a girl, Peppa and Rebecca, followed by a younger brother, George and Richard. Mummy Rabbit has Miss Rabbit as her sister, and Mummy Pig also has one, Dorothy. As if all that weren't enough, now Mummy Pig is pregnant and is going to have episodes focused on her pregnancy, just like Mummy Rabbit. Have you noticed how these two families were clearly designed to be nearly identical? One of the only differences is that Mummy Pig doesn't have twins, yet, because the writers could totally decide to give her two babies just like Mummy Rabbit, making the families even more alike. Yep, and there are a bunch of different ways this could happen, and we're going to talk about them all. If Peppa ends up with two siblings, chances are one will be a girl and the other a boy, especially if the show's creators really want to keep building that parallel between the Pig and Rabbit families, since Rosie and Robbie are a girl and a boy. Obviously, we don't know what their names will be, but in other videos we've theorized that the new family member might be called Peggy, short for Margaret, a nod to Queen Elizabeth II's sister, since the show is British and the Queen herself has appeared as a character. If Mummy Pig does have two babies, the girl could totally be named Peggy, not just because of what we said, but also because it sounds a lot like Peppa. As for the boy, he might also get a name that echoes the show's main character, but in a more masculine way. Maybe something like Peter? It would be so cool if the babies were one boy and one girl, because both Peppa and George would get a sibling they could really connect with. Peppa could play princess games with Peggy, while George would have someone to play with his dinosaur toys. Not that they couldn't all play together, or that George couldn't get Peggy into dinosaurs too. After all, there's no such thing as boy toys or girl toys. But this also means that as the youngest siblings get older, they could end up fighting a lot. It's way more common for brothers and sisters to argue when they're different genders, since they often think in opposite ways and have different interests. That can happen with same-gender siblings too, of course, but it's less common. Another thing that would totally make sense is seeing Peggy become best friends with Rosie and Peter with Robbie. George is best friends with Richard Rabbit, and Rebecca would probably be Peppa's best friend too, if it weren't for Susie Sheep. The fact that the Rabbit twins are about the same age as the twins Mummy Pig might have makes this friendship even more believable. So what do you think? Would you like to see Peggy and Peter show up in new episodes to bring even more fun to Peppa's world? If so, why not drop a hashtag Peggy in the comments so we can get to know you better? Even though it's hard to deny that the theory about the twins being different genders makes a lot of sense, there's another possibility we just can't ignore. What if Peppa ends up with two little sisters, Peggy and another baby girl? It would be super fun if the second girl's name was Penelope, and even cooler if she got the sweet little nickname Pepper. It's a cute shortened version of her name, and maybe she'd have reddish cheeks like a chili pepper. Just imagine Peppa saying her sister's nickname is Pepper because of that. That would be hilarious if it really happened. And with two little sisters, Peppa would feel even more connected to them and would always bring them along to play with her and Susie. Poor George might start to feel a bit left out, but he'd definitely still play with the girls. We imagine he'd turn into a really protective big brother, being the only boy and the oldest sibling now. Of course, George would also miss being the baby of the family, the one who always gets spoiled by their parents. There would probably be a whole episode just about that. Eventually, he'd start to feel what it's like to be Peppa, who's always pushed to second place, and would learn to deal with it. It would be pretty funny if George's next birthday ended up being something super low-key, unlike his last party, which took place at a museum and even had a robotic dinosaur, while the babies get a huge, fancy, and super expensive celebration. Another thing that would be so fun to see with the twin girls, and honestly way more likely if they're both girls, is Peggy and Pepper becoming best friends. When the two girls are born and grow up together, it's easy to imagine they'll become inseparable. Maybe they'd even turn into one of those twin duos who dress alike and have super similar personalities, to the point where it's hard to tell them apart, and that could totally become a running joke in the show. In that case, their friendship with the Rabbit family's twins might not be as strong, but we still think they'd be good friends anyway. Or maybe the show will introduce new babies who could become Peggy and Pepper's besties in the future. I guess we'll have to wait and see. First big clue that there really is a member of the pig family you've never seen is on Mommy Pig's computer, the one she gave to Grandpa Pig as a gift. There's a game on it with chickens laying eggs, and on the game start screen, you can see the scoreboard. In first place is George, with the letters GEO, followed by his sister Peppa, with her name starting as PEP. We know who the other players are. GNP is Grandma Pig, and GPP is Grandpa Pig. Right below them, we have Mommy Pig with the letters MMP, and even Susie Sheep shows up as SUZ. But if you pay close attention, there's a final spot with the letters OOP. The biggest clue of all is in the player's score, 142. In Peppa's world, episode 142 is the one that tells the story of the Rabbit sisters, where one of them gets hurt and can't leave the house, while the other has to take her place. See how this feels like a clue? It's really strange that the mysterious player on the Pig family computer would have a number that points straight to a story about two sisters. But is this the only proof? Of course not. That's why today you're gonna find out everything about Peppa's lost sister. One thing's for sure, Peppa Pig and Bluey are the two biggest kids cartoons on TV right now, and because of that, both series tend to tell similar stories. In Bluey's world, we know that Chili had a child before the main character was born, but in Peppa Pig, this theory is a bit trickier to talk about because the clues are much harder to spot. In Peppa's Special Tales, there's a moment that really supports our theory. Peppa finds a video of herself when she was just a little baby. In this story, Peppa gets the idea to pretend she's pregnant, just like Bluey and Bingo when they want to put on a play for their parents. In the puppy cartoon, Bingo loses her baby by letting the balloon pop, and everyone remembers the strange look Bandit gave Chili in that moment. That's what started the entire, now confirmed theory that the Healer family had a first child before Bluey. Meanwhile, in Peppa's story, something very similar happens. Instead of a balloon, Peppa decides to use a pillow to look pregnant, but when she's pretending to give her fantasy baby a massage, the pillow falls to the ground. At that moment, Peppa makes a weird face, and even George looks a bit uncomfortable. In her imagination, it's as if the baby slipped out of the mother's belly in the wrong way, like an accident happened because Peppa couldn't hold the baby inside her belly. And even more concerning, another scene in this same episode might actually confirm the theory. When Peppa asks Mommy Pig what people with babies in their bellies usually do, Mommy Pig makes a very strange face, as if she doesn't know how to answer. In her case, something terrible happened, and Mommy Pig will never forget it. The whole story ends in a strange way because Auntie Pig arrives at the house for a visit bringing baby Alexander. It's at this moment that Peppa takes the pillow out from under her dress and places it on the floor. Let's remember, the pillow is the pretend baby. Then, Peppa swaps the pillow for baby Alexander. See how that's a clue? Our main character had a baby, but decided to put it on the floor to replace it with another one. Honestly, this whole story felt really odd. Would you like to have a little brother or sister like Peppa? Drop us a comment with #baby so we can get to know ya.
First friend. Everyone has a first friend, and in Evie Pig's case, we're pretty sure it's going to be baby Alexander, her cousin, who's also a newborn. In the episode Baby Piggy, Peppa's family goes to Uncle and Aunt Pig's house to meet the new cousin. That same story is going to repeat when it's time for Chloe Pig's family to meet their new cousin Evie. But baby Alexander isn't going to like his cousin at first. That's because he'll feel jealous, since he's no longer the new baby in the family. We know this because in Alexander's episode, George felt jealous of the new cousin. Alexander will start to like Evie once he realizes she's actually really cool. They're going to want to play in the mud, because pigs love that, and since it'll be the first time the two youngest cousins learn how to jump in muddy puddles, their friendship is basically guaranteed. And the best part is, you're about to find out exactly what Evie Pig's first few months will be like. First birthday. And who isn't excited to see Evie's first birthday? Of course, a lot will happen before that episode, but the story about Evie's party is going to be one of the funniest. That episode will be called The Missing Cake. The narrator will begin by saying it's Evie Pig's first birthday, and the whole family will be super happy because all their friends have arrived for the party. Everyone brought presents for Evie, until the doorbell rings and Daddy Pig answers it. It's the mailman, Mr. Zebra. But then Daddy Pig gets confused and asks where the cake is. The truth is, the Pig family had bought a birthday cake from Miss Rabbit's shop to celebrate Evie, and it was supposed to be delivered by mail. But Mr. Zebra didn't bring anything and said there was no cake in the delivery box. Mommy Pig picks up the phone and calls Miss Rabbit's bakery, and she replies saying she already put the package in the mailbox the day before. But how? Mr. Zebra showed up empty-handed. That's when a big mystery begins. Where is the birthday cake? Evie Pig realizes something's wrong and starts to cry, and that's when everyone at the party runs around town looking for the cake. They go to the mall, the school, and even the town farm, searching for the treat. And then Mr. Zebra realizes that he accidentally delivered tomorrow's mail instead of today. So everyone races to the mailbox with today's deliveries, and there it is, Evie's birthday cake. The party continues right in the middle of town, and all the characters come together to celebrate. The only bad part is that Evie won't remember the wild adventure that was her first birthday, but you will. First toy. If George has a dinosaur as his favorite toy, and Peppa has Teddy, then what will Evie's toy be? It's definitely going to be a panda bear. This theory popped up online in the last few days, and it actually makes a lot of sense. Evie was introduced in the show to charm the fans, and after a lot of digging to find out what animals younger viewers love most, the panda came out on top. That means Evie Pig is already a major icon for today's younger generation. The little panda she's going to get from Miss Rabbit might not have a name yet. That's because she hasn't learned to talk yet, and it'll be up to Evie herself to choose the name of her favorite toy. And when Evie does learn to talk, she might name the panda Peggy. That's because there was a popular fan theory online that Peppa's new sister would be named Peggy. But since the creators went a different route, the show might bring that name back through the toy. What do you think? Day at the park. At some point, Evie Pig will finally get to leave the house and go play at the park with her older siblings. And sometime this year, the show is expected to release an episode called A Day at the Park, where Evie will finally get to explore one of the coolest places in town. But when that time comes, we need to be extra careful because the Pig family doesn't exactly have a perfect track record there. Everyone remembers when Grandpa Pig took the kids to play on the slide. He let George and Richard Rabbit cut in line, keeping the other kids from having fun. And most likely, Grandpa Pig will be the one to take Evie to the playground for the very first time. Just like George, Evie probably won't like having to wait in line to play, and that's definitely going to upset the other kids. Will that stop Evie from making new friends? Beach. And of course, we have to see Evie's very first day at the beach, and there's no doubt that this episode is going to happen. There are already lots of episodes where Peppa visits the beach, but we're betting that Grandpa and Grandma Pig will take their 3 grandkids to see the ocean, and the plot really is what you're probably thinking. Evie wants to visit the beach and see the fish. As everyone knows, Grandpa Pig owns a boat, and he's definitely going to take his newest granddaughter out fishing. This will also be the episode where Grandma Pig teaches Evie how to swim. It's going to be a super fun and emotional day because it's always special when someone sees the ocean for the first time. Do you think Evie might make a fish friend? We sure hope so. School. One of the things that's definitely going to happen is Evie going to school for the very first time. But we're not talking about Madame Gazelle's class just yet. Before that, Evie needs to go to daycare. There's even a theory that Miss Rabbit runs a little preschool just for the younger kids before they're old enough to start with Madame Gazelle. And that could be true because Miss Rabbit seems to run everything important in town. Evie will start daycare when Mommy Pig has to go back to work. But someone needs to take care of the little piggy during the day. And that's when we'll find out there's yet another building in town managed by Miss Rabbit, the place where all the youngest kids stay until they're ready to move on to Madame Gazelle's class. Evie will make new friends on that day when she meets her cousin Alexander's daycare buddies. 2 of them will be Rebecca and Richard Rabbit's little siblings. Remember them? Rose and Robbie Rabbit? They're going to meet Evie that day. Do you think the babies will get along? A lot of people believe that Peppa was going to have another little brother, but that theory is officially canceled. The episode The Baby Balloon already confirmed that the Pig family is having another girl. In the extra episodes known as Peppa's Tales, our favorite piggy is seen chatting with George about whether the baby would be a boy or a girl, and our channel was right all along when we said there'd be a gender reveal party. Daddy Pig and Mommy Pig brought out a big balloon that was supposed to be filled with either blue or pink paint to reveal the baby's gender at the party. But since nothing's ever that simple in Peppa Pig, a super strong gust of wind blew the balloon away. Everyone started running after it, but when Daddy Pig finally caught it and popped it, there was nothing inside. The polar bear doctor had forgotten to put the results in the balloon, but she brought Mommy Pig's test results with her, and right in the middle of town, the whole family, and yes, the whole world, found out that Peppa and George are going to have a baby sister. This is 100% real and official, so yeah, the theories about the new baby being a boy, totally wrong. But if you want to find out everything we already know about Peppa's new sister, who's been confirmed to be born in June 2025,
Now that we know Peppa is definitely getting a baby sister and when she's going to be born, the big question is, what will her name be? If we follow the pattern of character names in the show, it's pretty clear that the new baby will have a name that starts with the letter P, just like Peppa. One of the most popular guesses that's been going around online for months is Peggy Pig. It sounds similar to Peppa's name and would also be a sweet tribute to Princess Margaret of England. Every fan knows that Peppa is a British cartoon, and Queen Elizabeth had a younger sister named Margaret. In English, Peggy is actually a nickname for Margaret. Another possible name is Pam Pig, and there's a reason for that. Pam is short for Pamela, which means something sweet. So in this case, the name would be explained as Sweet Little Pig, and if that's what they choose, it would be a clue that Peppa's little sister will be a super sweet and gentle girl. The other option is a name even closer to Peppa's. They might go with Pepper Pig, and the reason behind it is super simple. Pepper means spice, and if the new character turns out to be super active, wild, and chaotic, then this name would fit perfectly, don't you think? So which name do you like better? Could Peppa's little sister be called Peggy or Pepper? Peppa's new little sister is also going to need a favorite toy. For Peppa, it's Teddy, her stuffed bear, and for George, well, you already know, it's his dinosaur. So now we need to figure out what the new baby piglet's favorite toy is going to be. Since she's a girl, does that mean she won't like fierce toys like dinosaurs? Wrong. Of course, it's totally possible for a girl to love tough toys like dinosaurs and dragons. This new baby might end up having way more in common with George than with Peppa. Why would that be? Simple. Peppa is the main character, which means she has to be one of a kind. But there are other possibilities too. For example, she might love fairies, especially one in particular, Holly from that other famous cartoon by the same creators. Ben and Holly is made by the same team behind Peppa Pig, and Peppa's new little sister might end up with a Holly fairy doll as a fun reference to the other show. In that way, fans of Peppa who haven't seen the other series might start checking out Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom too. Everybody knows pigs eat pretty much everything, but we believe that in Peppa and George's case, their favorite food is spaghetti with tomato sauce. We know this because in the episode where they go to a restaurant to celebrate Grandpa Pig's birthday, Peppa ends up ordering pasta for both herself and George. The funniest part is that pasta wasn't even on the restaurant's menu, but they still had the chef make it. In another episode called The Biggest Buffet Ever, Peppa is on a boat with her grandparents, and even though there's a ton of food available, she grabs the spaghetti with tomato sauce. That's actually a clue that her little sister might love spaghetti too, but that's only going to happen later on because for now, the new baby piglet will only be eating baby food. Do you think her baby food will be spaghetti flavored? Do you have a favorite food? Comment with #food so we can plan a picnic! Peppa's first word was mummy. We found that out in the episode Baby Alexander. And of course, George said dinosaur before he said anything else. But what about the new character? We believe her first word will be tied to one of her early adventures. Remember how we said this baby might be named Pepper because she's going to be super wild? That's exactly why we think her first word is going to be balloon. Don't get it yet? Let us explain. In the episode The Baby Balloon, that's when we find out the new piglet is a girl, and the entire story revolves around that balloon. It all starts with a huge mix-up, which is a pretty big hint that this character is going to be full of chaos. Peppa Pig might end up causing all sorts of trouble because of a colorful balloon, and that's why balloon could be her first word. She might even float away in a hot air balloon, and the whole family will have to chase after her to avoid a big accident. Did Pepper inherit Daddy Pig's bad luck? Family gathering. It's not just Evie's parents and siblings who are super happy about her birth. Actually, all the relatives must be absolutely thrilled, and the very first thing they'll do is visit Peppa's house to meet her new little sister. So, one of the first episodes to be released after the youngest piglet's birth will probably be all about a family gathering. We'll definitely see Grandpa and Grandma Pig, no doubt about it, but also Uncle Pig and Peppa's cousins, including baby Alexander, who's also a baby like Evie but just a bit older than she is. But since this is such a super special event, there's a chance Aunt Dottie, Mommy Pig's sister, might show up too. Even though she lives in another country, she already knows about her sister's pregnancy and could easily travel back to England to be part of this very special moment. It would be really interesting if, in addition to all these pigs, a few family members we've never seen before also showed up. In this case, we're talking about Daddy Pig's parents, who have never appeared in the show despite the fact that the series has been going on for over 20 years. This would be a fantastic opportunity, and we're hoping the show's writers don't waste it. It's going to be amazing to see all of this happening, right? There are a bunch of things just like this that are only going to happen because of the new addition of the pig family, and today we're talking about all of them. Sibling playtime. Peppa and Evie are going to be such good friends that they'll be playing together all the time. But there's someone else who's also going to have tons of fun with them.
George. Since he absolutely loves playing, there's no way he won't want to join in and play with his new little sister. But of course, it's not all gonna be smooth sailing. We all know how Peppa and George have totally different play styles. While Peppa is calmer and loves pretending to be a princess or a doctor, George prefers more rough and tumble play. Basically anything that involves running around with Mr. Dinosaur in hand. Since Evie is still so little, she doesn't really have her own preferences yet, so her older siblings have the perfect opportunity to train her to develop her own interests. Because of that, Peppa and George might end up competing over how they'll play with Evie. In the end, the lack of teamwork between the two will only make the baby girl upset and start crying, and that's when they'll realize that what the little one likes most is everything except family fights. From that moment on, they'll probably take turns with their games and even mix them together, so in the end, Evie will learn how to have fun in both ways. Helping mom and dad. Still, there's no denying that the arrival of a baby mainly changes the lives of those closest to them, the ones who will be spending the most time with the little one. And that's exactly the case for the main characters of the show. It was already kind of tricky for Mommy and Daddy Pig to take care of just 2 kids. Imagine now that they'll have to handle a third, who's way younger and demands much more attention. They definitely won't be able to do it all by themselves, but thankfully they can count on their older kids to help out. Peppa and George, who will definitely be willing to lend a hand. Well, sort of, right? Peppa will absolutely love giving her baby sister a bottle, for example. But will she really be brave enough to help with the more complicated tasks, like changing diapers? We're betting no way. That's kinda gross. George will probably be even more stubborn about it. He's always been the family's youngest, and because of that, he's been spoiled his whole life, at least until Evie was born. Now he's the middle child and won't get as much attention anymore. If on top of that, he has to do boring chores to help the parents, there's a pretty big chance he'll just refuse. But eventually he'll end up accepting his new role and start helping Peppa out, at least with the easier and less boring stuff, like helping dress the baby in cute little outfits. School. Evie is definitely going to meet all of her relatives, that's almost a given. But you'd be wrong to think all the excitement is going to stay within just the Pig family, because even Peppa's friends will probably get the chance to meet her new baby sister. And we believe that's going to happen in an episode where Peppa brings her little sister to school, where all the kids will get to play with Evie. We're 100% sure that everyone will fall for the baby's charms. Plus, it's going to be amazing to see Madame Gazelle meet the little girl. There are lots of signs that Peppa's teacher is a vampire and literally the oldest being in the show's universe. So it would be a meeting between the character who's been alive the longest and the one who's been alive the shortest. If you're also super excited to see all these things happen in Peppa Pig, drop a comment down below with #Evie. First words. Another moment involving Evie that's going to shake up the Pig family, and honestly all of us too, will happen when the little piglet grows enough to say her very first words. Even though time works in a totally different way in Peppa Pig, it still passes somehow. After all, some characters have already celebrated birthdays and even had episodes completely focused on that. On top of that, baby Alexander is a newborn in his first appearance and later shows up a little older than before. The twins that Mommy Rabbit had are also other examples of babies who grew up. So it's only a matter of time before the youngest of the pigs also goes through this growing up process. And in the meantime, she'll probably say her first word. Normally a baby's first word is either dada or mama. If we had to pick between these, she'd most likely say mama, mostly because that's the most common, and Mommy Pig will be most present in her life, since Daddy Pig is going to be working harder than ever to support the family. However, the truth is, we think the show will go in a different direction and make Evie's first word be Peppa. After all, Peppa is the main character of the show and will definitely be a great friend to her new little sister. The first thing you need to know about the new little piglet is that her name is Evie Pig, and this character surprised all of us because no one expected a name like that. But the surprise is even better than fans imagined. Our research moved fast, and we already know the big reason why the name Evie was chosen. It's important to point out that Evie is a very common nickname in England, which is where the show takes place. For a long time, it was short for the name Evelyn. That's why we're calling it a nickname. But if you really want to know why Daddy and Mummy Pig chose to name their new daughter Evie, here it is. Evie means the desired one, or long-awaited. And that's a big clue that this character was meant to be born, not just by her parents, but by the entire Peppa Pig universe. Because it's almost certain that Evie is the chosen one in this world and is meant to play a major role. Evie was born on May 20th, 2025, and that's a really important detail for the future. It means she's a Taurus. But what exactly does that mean? Maybe you don't believe in zodiac stuff, and that's okay. But since Evie is a cartoon character, this kind of detail is often used when shaping her personality. One interesting thing is that we know Evie was born exactly at 5:34 in the morning, and that matters because May 20th is the day the Taurus sign shifts to Gemini.
The show's creators didn't want Evie to be a Gemini because everyone knows Peppa Pig is haunted by the ghost of a long-lost twin sister of our main character. So what does the birth time mean? It's simple. By being born at dawn, Evie avoided being born at the wrong time. And here's a fun fact, on May 20th, 2025, the day she was born, the zodiac change was set to happen at 3 p.m. The show's production team even shared the birth time to reassure fans. Taurus people are known for being patient, but also very stubborn, and most of all, they love to eat. So Evie's probably going to be the piglet who eats all the food in the pig family's house, and her siblings are likely to get annoyed at how much she eats without sharing. It's also pretty likely we'll see a lot of sibling fights because even though Evie is expected to be very patient, Taurus-born folks tend to scare everyone around them when they finally lose their temper. So maybe Evie is the kind of piglet who turns green like the Incredible Hulk when she gets mad. Do you think that's going to make fans like her more or less? The third Miss Rabbit. Could there be a third Miss Rabbit? Everyone knows she's one of the biggest mysteries in the show. She has way too many jobs, and it's completely impossible for one person to manage them all. In the same episode where she takes time off for health reasons, the entire town struggles with empty shops and no staff. Up to that point, we thought Miss Rabbit and her twin sister were the only ones in town, but there's a bigger mystery, a third secret sister. The chances of this character being real are very high. There's just no way she could work at the grocery store, do helicopter rescues, and also work at the airport and the clothing store. During the trip to New York, the Miss Rabbit who lives there said that every city has someone just like her. If you do the math, that means there could be at least 20,000 Miss Rabbits around the world. But even then, it doesn't make sense for there to be only one per city. That's why it's very likely there's a third Miss Rabbit secretly living where Peppa does, working alongside her sister. After all, if she's at the airport check-in, how can she also be the pilot? You're about to get answers to questions like that with the 12 hidden characters in Peppa Pig. So grab your popcorn, because another Cinewave is about to begin. The narrator. One of the most hidden characters is the narrator of the episodes. He watches all the characters and even knows what they're thinking. But who is he? The biggest theory is that this character is actually the owner of the TV studio that follows the pig family, because we all know there are cameras watching Peppa and her friends. Every episode starts with the camera zooming in and entering buildings. And in the episode about George's new outfit, we even see the camera lens get splashed with mud from the pig family's garden. The narrator knows everything that happens because he's watching through the cameras. That's why we believe he's the owner of the studios that films Peppa's family and friends. Could that be true? The evil twin. We're pretty sure Peppa had a sister even before Evie came along. That's right, our main character has a secret sister who might be living in the basement. There's an official image from the show that shows another piggy at the house window, and it's super important to note that the picture was made by the show's creators. That means you can trust it. Peppa definitely has a sister, and we're not talking about Evie. Another clue is on Mummy Pig's computer, where the high score in a game shows initials that no one recognizes, and the score is 142. Episode 142 of the series is about the twin rabbit sisters, which could be a hidden clue. This character might even pretend to be Peppa and sometimes acts mean, like when she fights with Susie or makes fun of Daddy Pig by calling him fat. Do you believe Peppa has a secret twin? Claire Cow. The little cow who shows up in several episodes is one of the show's biggest mysteries. The internet knows her name is Claire Cow, and she's the daughter of Mrs. Cow. But why wasn't Claire at her own mother's wedding? She lives in the same town as Peppa, but she doesn't go to Madame Gazelle's school. She's never been in class with the main group. So what's the mystery behind Claire Cow? In the episode where Peppa goes to the theater with her school friends, Miss Rabbit drives all the kids and the teacher to the Mr. Potato Show. And on the bus, there's no sign of any little cow. But inside the theater, you can see Claire Cow sitting in the audience with other kids who don't go to Peppa's school. That means Mr. Potato was putting on a big show for lots of kids that day, which proves Claire does live in Peppa's town, but Mrs. Cow chose a different school for her. So why didn't she show up at her mom's wedding? There's really only one reason to miss something that big. Claire was probably out of town, maybe dealing with a serious health issue. And believe it or not, this character travels a lot. You can spot her near a bus in New York when the pig family visits America, and she's also in London when Peppa and her classmates meet the Queen. So yeah, she missed the wedding because she was traveling. Is that the real reason? Or maybe Mrs. Cow knows Madame Gazelle is a vampire and wanted to keep her daughter far away. Would you like to go to school with Peppa? Comment with #Peppa so we can get to know ya! The girl. Everyone knows there are a few humans in Peppa's world, like Santa, the pirate, and even the Queen. But did you ever notice the image of a girl who looks like a shepherd? She appears on posters in New York when the pig family visits Times Square. And look closely. This poster shows the first ever wild sheep that doesn't look like Susie. That same girl shows up again in another poster. this time on a tent at the Children's Festival in Peppa's hometown, when the whole family is having fun. But what's the mystery behind her? There's an important clue in the episode about George's new clothes, when Miss Rabbit tries to sell him a wool jacket. If wool comes from sheep, and this girl takes care of them, then that's solid proof that she's the one harvesting it and selling it to stores. Could she be working for Miss Rabbit? One of the most mysterious characters in Peppa's world is Claire Cow. She's a little kid, and definitely the daughter of Mrs. Cow and Mr. Bull. She doesn't go to the same school as Peppa, and that would be totally normal. After all, in any town, there are lots of different schools. But many fans think that Mrs. Cow might actually be Claire's aunt, which is why she's not close to Peppa. But that's not true either. In the episode with Mandy Mouse, there's a scene where Mr. Bull is taking Claire to the store. Back then, he wasn't married to Mrs. Cow yet, but he was already hanging out with Claire on his own, so they're clearly close, like a real father and daughter. In another scene from the London episode, we see the little cow next to her mom at the subway station, and they both love traveling because Claire also goes to New York to visit Times Square. Mr. Bull is another very mysterious character. He works in construction, helping build roads, houses, and fixing school roofs. But have you ever stopped to wonder why he's always hanging around Peppa's school when none of his kids even go there? Mr. Bull definitely has some secrets, like why none of the repairs he did on the school roof ever really worked. There are several episodes where he's fixing the exact same tiles again and again. Is he doing it on purpose to make more money? And why does he always use a wrecking machine to fix things? When he tried to repair a pothole in the street, he made the crack even bigger. Does Mr. Bull even know what he's doing? One of the biggest mysteries in Peppa's world is how carnivores live side by side with the other animals, and the scariest of them all is Mr. Lion. He works at the city zoo, taking care of the animals, and if you pay close attention to how scared Madame Gazelle gets when she sees him, you'll realize he's super suspicious. Madame Gazelle is clearly one of the most mysterious characters in this universe, and she really shouldn't be afraid of Mr. Lion, but we'll talk more about her later. Another strange clue is that Mr. Lion appears at the London train station when the kids go visit Queen Elizabeth, and Madame Gazelle stares straight at him, clearly afraid. Is this character more powerful than we think? Peppa's teacher might actually be a vampire, but no one's ever figured out how she survives in the sunlight. In the Halloween episode, she has no reflection in the mirror, and everyone knows only vampires do that. When Peppa and her family visit her house, we find out she planted a pine tree when she was already an older character, and that kind of tree takes 20 years to grow. Which means Madame Gazelle shouldn't even be alive anymore, but she still looks super healthy. In the episode Sun, Sea, and Snow, the whole town goes to the beach during winter while it's snowing, and Madame Gazelle swims in the icy ocean like it's no big deal. Have you ever tried taking a cold shower? In summer, maybe, but in a snowstorm? That's brutal. And what about you? Do you like cold showers? Drop a comment with #shower so we can get to know ya. Mr. Wolf is another mysterious figure in Peppa's world. He kind of feels like a villain in this universe. Want to hear one of the weirdest things he's ever done? In the episode America, when Peppa and her family travel to New York, Mr. Wolf follows them on the same plane. Everybody knows he's always wanted to eat Daddy Pig. He's constantly making creepy comments about breaking into Peppa's house. In the episode The Forest Club, he takes everyone deep into the woods and sets up Daddy Pig in a pile of sticks, like a campfire. Sure, he said it was to teach the others about survival in the forest, but it was still super sketchy. In that same episode, he says he was born in the woods. That's weird, since nobody else in Peppa's world seems to have grown up in the wild. He's definitely one of the most mysterious, and maybe one of the most dangerous characters in the entire show. Santa Claus is a mysterious character in Peppa Pig, just like he is in real life. He's shown up in a few episodes of the show, and even now, lots of people still wonder if he's the real Santa or just a guy in a costume working at the mall. According to Daddy Pig, he doesn't live at the North Pole. He actually lives in a cabin near the pig's house, which makes zero sense. But the weirdest part? When Peppa's school wrote him a Christmas letter, Mr. Zebra the mailman had to cross the ocean to deliver it to Santa's house. Will we ever learn the truth about this character? Do you know the Griffins? One of the most popular animated shows worldwide is called Family Guy, where the main characters are part of this unique family. In one episode, the family's mother, Lois Griffin, is accused by the police of committing a terrible crime against a little pink pig, but soon after, agents arrive and declare her innocent. In the next scene, the show zooms into Peppa's town, stopping at the pig family's house. A police officer knocks on the door, and Daddy Pig and Mummy Pig answer it. Joe then asks about Peppa, and after learning that it's the little pink pig's house, he looks sad and says everyone needs to talk. This heavily implies something terrible has happened to our beloved pink pig, suggesting that she's no longer among the living. This is definitely one of the darkest references to Peppa Pig. We're about to show you 14 amazing references to Peppa Pig in other cartoons that you probably didn't know. Not all references to Peppa are dark. As everyone knows, Peppa Pig shares the same creators as the show Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom. We're talking about producers Mark Baker and Neville Astley. In one episode of Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom called The Party, the pirate Redbeard, who also roams around Peppa Pig's town, appears at the Fairy Kingdom's castle. He seems to be good friends with the Queen and even helps rescue the kids when they get into a bit of trouble. Looks like Redbeard is a pretty nice guy after all. Do you enjoy fighting in action games? How about the power of the punch? This game is from a fictional franchise in the show Craig of the Creek, where the main character is a fan of a video game inspired by Street Fighter, where characters face off using all kinds of special moves. One of these characters is Peppa, and she appears on the game cover looking super muscular and with an intense, angry expression. What could Peppa's special move be? Maybe jumping in mud puddles. Back to Ben and Holly. The creators made more references. In one episode, when the Tooth Fairy visits to collect a girl's molar, we can spot a little stuffed pig in the corner of the room, which clearly resembles Peppa Pig. We know this is a reference from the creators themselves, but it's still really cool to see both shows existing in the same universe. We'll even see more appearances of Peppa in the fairy world, so stay tuned. There are also references to Peppa in the real world. Roblox is an online gaming platform that allows users to create their own games. One of the most popular games is Piggy, created by someone known as Minitoon. The game is a horror-themed version of the children's show Peppa Pig. If you take a look at the character, you'll see she looks a lot like our beloved Pink Pig. The game's objective is to survive a chase against an enemy and the best player wins, but it's definitely not recommended for those who are easily scared. Are you afraid of horror games? Then comment #scared so we know. Did you know that Peppa's house is actually the setting of a very famous painting? Oh yes, it's so rare and probably so valuable that this artwork decorates the dining room of the royal family in Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom. In the episode The Royal Fairy Picnic, we see in the background of the royal dining hall a painting that looks very familiar. It's Peppa's house. Could it be that the painting was a gift from Queen Elizabeth? Get ready, because now we're going to tell you about a Peppa episode you've never seen. One the creators would never write, but the writers of Robot Chicken on Adult Swim certainly had the nerve to create. This story is packed with action and a dark twist. In one Robot Chicken episode, an animated show for adults, there's a mini episode about Peppa that's pretty intense. In this story, Peppa is in an interrogation room with a police officer, who's definitely not Mr. Panda, asking her questions. He asks her what happened, and our hero says everything went wrong. Then we flash back to understand how Peppa ended up at the police station, and it all starts with her and Susie Sheep jumping in muddy puddles. Until Zoe Zebra shows up with a new toy, a stuffed monkey. Peppa damages the toy, making Zoe so furious that she threatens Peppa. Our protagonist has no choice but to find a way to get another monkey for her friend, likely from Miss Rabbit's shop. But since she has no money, Peppa decides to enlist her friends, Susie Sheep, Emily Elephant, Danny Dog, and Gerald Giraffe, to borrow the new toy without asking, if you know what I mean. When they sneak in at night, George decides to rat out his sister to Daddy Pig, who, being a responsible dad, tries to teach her a lesson by calling the police. Unfortunately, Peppa doesn't want to listen and ends up using a dangerous item to fix the problem. We then return to the present, where the officer asks if all this chaos was over a stuffed monkey, and Peppa admits that looking back, it seems silly to have done something illegal. One of the biggest mysteries in Peppa Pig is Miss Rabbit, who somehow manages to work almost every job available in the world of the show. We're not exactly sure how she pulls it off, and we even have some theories on the channel, like the idea that she could be an omnipresent entity, or maybe an actress just pretending to work. But just based on what we know, anyone who can handle so many different jobs would be getting a massive paycheck, since each job would pay separately. Miss Rabbit has at least 50 jobs, so she's likely making around 50 times more than most other adults in the show, like Daddy and Mummy Pig. If Peppa Pig's characters have a minimum salary of around $1,160, then Miss Rabbit's salary could be close to $58,000. And that's only counting the jobs we know Miss Rabbit has, since she's always appearing in a new role. She might actually be making double or even more. Plus, in one of her jobs, she produces the Super Potato TV show. Just that job alone must give a huge salary, showing that Miss Rabbit's fortune could be much bigger than we might imagine. Miss Rabbit definitely doesn't need to worry about saving, though I doubt she even has time to spend all that hard-earned money with so many jobs. But she loves working, so it's all good. Now, if there's one woman who is undeniably rich, it's the Queen. Unlike Miss Rabbit, she didn't even have to work for it. The Queen is part of the British royalty and owns the majority of the country's wealth. The only thing this lucky lady had to do was be born. Since the character is based on the late Queen Elizabeth II, we can even get an idea of how rich she might be. Real-life Queen Elizabeth received a substantial annual budget from the British government, and besides that, she also gained great wealth through investments. At the end of her life, she had a personal wealth estimated at around £370 million, which is about $475 million. It's likely the Queen in Peppa Pig is just as rich. Wow, she probably has a giant vault with a sea of money where she could swim like Scrooge McDuck. Madame Gazelle is just a teacher, and she probably doesn't earn much more than the other adults in the show, but we have reasons to believe her sisters deserve to be among the wealthiest characters in Peppa Pig. After all, her sisters have a music band called the Rocking Gazelles, and there are hints that they are quite successful since their house is filled with various music records. And as everyone knows, people who are successful in the music world often end up extremely rich as their music reaches audiences worldwide. In real life, a rock star earns around $10 to $50 million a year. The funny thing is that Madame Gazelle was part of the band when she was younger, probably before the group became famous. Just imagine if she had stayed in that career instead of becoming a teacher. She would definitely be swimming in money now. But she chose a different path in life, and that's okay. After all, teachers are also incredibly important. Hash Brown is one of the celebrities in the Peppa Pig world. He starred in the Hollywood movie Vegetables in Space alongside Super Potato. In fact, Super Potato even got jealous of the fame Hash Brown was gaining. This means Hash Brown is actually a bit more famous than his co-star, at least in the United States. A Hollywood star can earn between $20 to $40 million a year, so it's clear he's got more than enough money. This suggests his wealth is similar or even greater than that of other celebrities like Super Potato or Mr. Potato, and since he's getting more attention in Hollywood, it's likely his wealth will only grow over time. But do you want to see the Hash Brown and Super Potato movie? If so, comment below with #potato. I bet the movie is amazing. The pirate from Peppa Pig also shows signs of being very wealthy. After all, he's hunted down countless treasures throughout his long life of ocean adventures. In the episode Police Station, we know he had a very valuable pirate treasure, but I doubt that was his only chest of gold. Even if it was, the police ended up returning the treasure to him. A chest full of ancient gold coins is worth around $18 million, so he's definitely richer than his clothes make him look. But since he's a pirate, it's pretty likely that all his wealth was stolen from others. Could he have even stolen from the Queen without her knowing? He'd have to be pretty sneaky to pull something like that off, but I honestly wouldn't doubt his skills as a thief. This would actually be kind of funny, since both the pirate and the Queen are some of the few human characters in Peppa Pig. Near the city band, Peppa's family walks past Pedro Pony. He totally seems like the kind of kid who's into playing instruments, don't you think? And maybe Peppa did see him, but you know how kids are. It'd be super awkward to talk to your school crush in front of your parents, right? This city festival is a bit unusual because it's all about celebrating Pirate Redbeard. If you look closely, you'll see him on the banner at the entrance of the city park and even at the entrance of a big tent. You can also spot a cow there, but that one seems to be a wild cow, not a character like Claire. Inside the tent, there are posters showing the pirate, and with him is a very familiar pet, Polly the parrot. But it's kinda weird that this bird is with the pirate instead of Grandpa Pig. At the Science Museum, when Edmund Elephant is inside Grandpa Rabbit's rocket, a few characters appear. One of them is Mrs. Badger, a character who even has an episode all to herself. When she's not taking care of animals at the petting zoo, it looks like she enjoys visiting museums. One of the most mysterious characters also shows up, but this time as a work of art. Madame Gazelle's husband is in a painting at the Science Museum. You can spot him on the wall of the teacher's house wearing a suit and a top hat, but when Edmund is going up in the rocket, he shows up again, this time wearing a military uniform from over 200 years ago. That proves the Gazelle family has quite a few secrets.
You didn't see anything.
Near Mr. Gazelle's painting is one of the possible villains of this universe. Who would have thought Mr. Wolf was into art too? Because this character, who always seems to be on the lookout for an innocent piglet, is walking around one of the museum floors. Do you love little piggies as much as Mr. Wolf does? Drop a comment with the #PEPPA so we can connect. Up on the top floor of the museum, we can see some characters who are friends of Peppa's but hardly ever show up in the show. The first one is Peggy Panda, standing next to her mom. What's interesting is that at this moment, she's not with her twin sister Pandora Panda. Could it be that she's not a fan of museums? Another character we see is Belinda Bear. She's that friend of Peppa's cousin Chloe Pig. You know, when Peppa was trying to impress the older kids, Belinda is at the museum with her dad, Mr. Bear. And of course, among all the other characters, we also spot Mrs. Cow. She's by herself, but it looks like Mr. Bull's wife enjoys strolling around town solo. On March 9, 2007, Peppa Pig introduced us to her cousin Alexander. It's been so long that he definitely shouldn't be a baby anymore. He's the youngest member of the family, at least until Peppa's new little sister finally shows up. Alexander is Chloe's baby brother, and according to her, all he ever does is eat, sleep, and burp. But that's fine because all babies do that. What's weird is that this character needs a lot of noise in order to fall asleep, which makes no sense at all. In real life, people need a quiet place if they want to take a nap. The mystery gets even weirder when we find out that once he's asleep, if there's any noise, he wakes up and starts crying. That's exactly what Daddy Pig did. After the baby had finally dozed off, Peppa's dad walked into the room, and that was enough to wake Alexander up. But wait, wasn't he supposed to like noise when sleeping? That's one mystery that's never been explained. One fun fact is that we do know what his first word was. He said muddy puddles, all thanks to Peppa encouraging him. Cousin Chloe is the oldest kid on the show. She's 8 years old, and everybody knows this piggy loves pretending to be grown up, but she still enjoys things that are very much for kids. She loves doing art projects, like making puppets for her puppet theater, and of course she also loves putting on fun little plays with them. Chloe's favorite color is yellow, since she loves wearing a dress in that color. We don't know if Peppa's cousin ever went to Madame Gazelle's school or where she studies now, but she's probably going to show up again in the future to help Peppa take care of her new little sister.
You don't love me!
Next up is Grandpa Pig, and everyone knows he's surrounded by mysteries, like the fact that he collects ships and bottles, the same kind we've seen in Mr. Fox's shop, or the fact that the flag on his boat is a Jolly Roger, a pirate flag. And let's not forget he has a parrot who used to be friends with the pirate Captain Redbeard. Grandpa Pig is a real mystery. Even now, fans don't know if he used to be a regular sailor or a dangerous pirate. What's the truth? If you think Granny Pig is just a sweet old lady who loves gardening, think again. Back in the day, Peppa's grandma used to ride motorcycles, and she wasn't slow about it either. She and Grandpa Pig have a super cool red motorbike, and they even wear leather jackets. Granny Pig also loves playing RPGs. Did you know that? That means she likes pretending to be characters in role-playing games. She and her friends love acting like they're astronauts, and that's how Peppa and George ended up visiting the moon with their grandma. Peppa's got a pirate grandpa and a biker grandma. No wonder she's such a fun character. And hey, more fun than a rocket ship is hitting that subscribe button and turning on the notification bell. We've got new videos every single day. One of the best characters in the whole show is Daddy Pig. He's a famous architect who's built tons of houses. On Valentine's Day, the whole town sent him cards. That just shows how much the neighborhood loves him. And when the school roof broke twice, he parachuted from a plane and then ran in a marathon. Everyone knows Peppa's dad is one of the unluckiest characters in the show, but we still love Daddy Pig with all our hearts. Mummy Pig isn't a character with many mysteries, but there's one clue that suggests her real name might be Rose or something flower related. We say that because in the time capsule episode, she wears a floral dress, which might be a hint at her true name. We also know she works on the computer, but what exactly Mummy Pig does for work is still a mystery. One Peppa Pig relative who's never shown up is Daddy Pig's father. He's probably someone who needed glasses since his son has terrible vision. Will we ever get to meet him? Or maybe the show is hiding the truth, that he's no longer alive. That would be really sad. Along with Peppa's other grandpa, there's also Granny Pig, who is Daddy Pig's mother. This character is probably the one with good eyesight since Uncle Pig doesn't need to wear glasses. There's a theory that there aren't many pigs around anymore because a disease wiped them out, and maybe that's why we've never seen Peppa's paternal grandma. And last but definitely not least, George is Peppa's little brother. He loves dinosaurs, and, well, he really loves dinosaurs. He even found a real fossil once that now sits in the Peppa Pig World's Museum. Another unknown kid in the same audience where we saw Carol Cow and Charles Cat was a little donkey about George's age. Since he has no official name, we've decided to call him Albert Donkey. Albert is a complete mystery, as we know absolutely nothing about him, but we believe he might be related to the other donkeys who have appeared in Peppa Pig, specifically Delphine Donkey, Peppa's friend from France. After all, Delphine's mother has a sister, Delaney, who could very well be Albert's mom. Could the little donkey be fluent in French thanks to his family? That's something we won't be finding out anytime soon. One background character that Peppa Pig's most observant fans might remember is Mr. Badger. He has appeared in several episodes, though almost always in the background. Because of this, we already know he's just an ordinary citizen of Peppa's town. But it's important to note that Mr. Badger is a farmer and he probably lives on a farm with his wife. His wife is Mrs. Badger, another background character, who, by the way, appears even less than he does. Everyone loves the Wolf family, especially because of their fun little nods to the Three Little Pigs and Little Red Riding Hood. But there's another little wolf in Peppa Pig who isn't Wendy. She's a background character who shows up every now and then. While Wendy has gray fur and wears a pinkish purple dress, this other wolf, who doesn't have an official name but whom we'll call Letitia, has brown fur and wears a blue dress. No one has the slightest idea who she is, but the first thought everyone has is that Letitia must be related to Wendy, though that might not be the case since all of Wendy's known relatives are gray, while Letitia is brown. Well, maybe Daddy Wolf or Mommy Wolf has a brown sibling who married another brown wolf, which would keep things consistent and make Letitia Wendy's cousin. But since she doesn't appear often, it's also possible that Letitia simply belongs to another wolf family that lives in a nearby town, so she only visits Peppa's town from time to time. And just like Letitia travels to Peppa's town, you can travel to a world of fun and imagination every day by subscribing to the channel, so don't miss out on this opportunity. Peppa has traveled to different parts of the world a few times, and one of her coolest trips was to Italy, where she met a rather suspicious policeman. He showed up multiple times in the episodes where the pig family was in Italy for one specific reason. Peppa kept losing Teddy, her stuffed animal, over and over again, and the only reason the toy wasn't lost forever in Italy was that the policeman always appeared to find it and return it to Peppa. It's all pretty strange, considering there's no explanation for how the policeman managed to find the stuffed animal every single time, and on top of that, he always managed to track down the pig family afterward. Another interesting detail is that the policeman understands and speaks perfect English, which could mean he's not actually from Italy. Could he be related to Captain Otter? The two do look quite similar. Another mysterious Italian resident is Mr. Deer. One of the more minor characters they met there was Mr. Deer, a vehicle salesman. Daddy Pig rents a car from him as soon as they arrive in Italy, and well, that was his biggest moment in the entire show. Aside from his job, Mr. Deer has a very curious trait. He is the only character in Peppa Pig's 20-year history who doesn't know how to speak English. Even the other Italians the pig family interacted with during their trip were able to communicate in English, but he can't even understand what they're saying. Because of this, we can be pretty sure he has never lived in England and probably has no direct connection to any of the more important characters in the series. Grandpa Pig has some great friends, and one of them, Grandpa Rabbit, plays a big role in several episodes. Mr. Hyrax, on the other hand, is basically just a background character. He's only appeared in a handful of episodes and has never had much screen time, aside from a few minor dialogues. That said, he does have a few unique characteristics. He's one of the few characters in the show who has 3 different jobs, alongside Mrs. Cow and Miss Rabbit, though Miss Rabbit works way more than just 3 jobs. Now it's time to talk about the 3 most powerful characters in the entire Peppa Pig universe. As funny as it may sound, there's another humanoid potato in the series besides Mr. Potato, and his name is Super Potato. He kicks off our top 3 most powerful characters in the Peppa Pig universe, and for good reason. While Mr. Potato is a famous TV host, Super Potato has all the qualities of a superhero. He can do amazing things like fly and lift heavy objects with his super strength. He's basically the Superman of the Peppa Pig world, but way more stylish. After all, Superman is a guy with superpowers, but Super Potato? He's a potato with superpowers! There's just no competition. Sorry, Clark Kent. But that's not all. Super Potato also stars in a super popular TV show, making him just as influential a celebrity as Mr. Potato. It's kind of sad for Mr. Potato though. Imagine there are 2 famous humanoid potatoes, and you're the only one without extraordinary powers, unlike some Marvel superhero. Good thing he didn't lose his mind from envy and turn into a Lex Luthor type villain. Of course, the top 3 wouldn't be complete without another mystical being, or maybe an entity? Anyway, Peppa Pig's Father Christmas is quite similar to the Santa Claus we all know and love, a jolly old man who travels the world on Christmas Eve to deliver gifts to all the well-behaved kids. He's the ultimate symbol of Christmas, the best time of the year. He appears several times in the series and seems to have quite a few abilities, plus an incredible set of tools. The easiest one to remember is definitely his flying sleigh with reindeer that can cover the whole world in one night, which means he's got no excuse to be late to any event. The poor guy probably has to give all his friends rides too. Speaking of friends, Father Christmas has tons of elves working for him, building toys. He's too peaceful to use them for evil, but if the good old man ever went bad, he could command an unstoppable army of elves, building real weapons instead of just toys. If that happened, Peppa Pig's world would be in big trouble. Considering all the myths surrounding this legendary figure, he might even have several magical powers and special artifacts. Either way, you should think twice before messing with Father Christmas. But even so, he's not the most powerful character in the Peppa Pig universe. That title goes to Miss Rabbit. She might seem like just another ordinary citizen in this series, but there's evidence she might not even be human at all. After all, she has countless jobs that no regular person could possibly handle, and she still finds time to hang out with the other characters outside of work. The only way to explain this is that she's not a regular person, but rather an omnipresent entity, meaning a divine being who can be everywhere at once. Just the fact that she has so many jobs already makes her as important as the queen herself. If she were to quit all of her jobs at the same time, entire sectors would collapse due to a lack of workers, and the country could fall into chaos. Plus, since Miss Rabbit works as a TV producer, she also has control over the media. She could use that power to influence people's minds with subliminal messages, given how films and TV shows can affect our brains to make us interested in products or ideas. But beyond that, there's another superpower. If Miss Rabbit really is omnipresent, as all signs point to, she knows everything that's happening at any given moment. In other words, she knows all about Peppa's life and everyone else's. And if we take it a step further, we can even theorize that Miss Rabbit is aware that the Peppa Pig world is just a TV show. Maybe the perspective we see when watching the show is just one of the infinite ways Miss Rabbit views everything. Perhaps she created this world and has been controlling all the characters like her puppets since the dawn of time. If that's true, Peppa Pig would be a much darker series than any of us ever imagined. Ben and Holly is a cartoon created by the same studio behind Peppa Pig, and there are fan theories suggesting that both shows exist in the same universe. One piece of evidence shows up during Peppa's trip to the United States when they're visiting Times Square. There's a giant glowing sign of Ben and Holly, but it seems like the show is a big Broadway hit, a live performance you can actually go see. Holly also appears in another episode called Once Upon a Time. She's on the cover of a children's storybook where Peppa is telling George a bunch of magical tales. Could that be the link between the two shows? Maybe, when you're watching Ben and Holly, it's actually Peppa reading to her little brother.
That's simply not possible.
In the episode The Market, the pig family has to do their monthly grocery shopping. During the story, it looks like they're the only ones in the store, but that's not true. Right at the start, we can see Mrs. Sheep inside the market, though it seems like she didn't bring Susie along. In that same episode, we also spot Mr. Bear, Belinda Bear's father, shopping in the store, and he's also alone. Both Mr. Bear and Mrs. Sheep seem to be a bit smarter than Daddy and Mummy Pig. Bringing kids to the store can definitely get pricey. We already talked about Mr. Wolf, but there's another moment that makes us a little worried. It happens during the episode where the pig family is flying to America. If you look closely at the plane, right near the second to last window, you'll spot a very familiar face. It's Mr. Wolf, and we all know exactly what he's up to. This character has always wanted to eat Daddy Pig, so of course he decided to follow the pig family all the way to America. The police should really keep an eye on Mr. Wolf. One day he might just end up turning Daddy Pig into dinner. In that same scene where Mr. Wolf's secret is revealed, we can see Mr. Cat sitting in the very last row of the plane, but he pops up again later. In New York, he's enjoying the city, though he's alone without his wife or kids. Maybe this was a business trip. In the episode Sleepy Train Ride, there's one character no one can miss. Dr. Hamster. The one who always loses Tittles the tortoise is on a trip. Chances are that tortoise is still trying to escape the vet clinic to this day. We know that Mr. Rabbit is also on that same train. He's sitting right behind Mrs. Sheep, who once again is without Susie. You know who should always stick together? Us! So don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. In Grandpa Pig's birthday episode, we spot some familiar faces. While the pig family is heading to a fancy restaurant to celebrate Grandpa Pig's big day, we see Mrs. Rabbit having dinner with her husband. Right near the rabbit's table are Mr. and Mrs. Fox, who also seem to be enjoying a romantic dinner. But how do you think Freddy's dad paid for the meal? Like, whose money was it really? Just behind the Fox's table are Mr. Horse and Mrs. Corgi. These two sailors spend a lot of time together. In the same scene, we can see Mrs. Cat having dinner with her husband, and this moment sparks some controversy. A lot of fans think this isn't Mr. Cat because of the color, but actually, the show just changed the character's design. And Mr. Bull is sitting at another table having tea with his friend, Mr. Labrador. In this episode, we find out that Mrs. Giraffe, Gerald's mom, works as a waitress at the town's fancy restaurant. She serves spaghetti to Peppa's family. Mr. Labrador, who works alongside Mr. Bull, shows up in other moments too. He's traveling to Paris, France, when the pig family goes to visit the Eiffel Tower. This time he's in disguise. He's wearing a floral shirt, but we know it's still him. Changing your outfit won't fool us. In the time capsule episode, when Madame Gazelle shows the videotape of the kids' parents when they were young, we can spot a young Miss Rabbit. It could be her twin sister, but since Miss Rabbit is a more important character, we believe it's really her. Right behind young Mummy Pig, we can see Captain Dog, Danny's dad, but back then he wasn't a sailor yet. In the episode where Peppa's class visits the city of London, there's an interesting scene. Mr. Lion, the guy who works at the zoo and once scared Madame Gazelle, is walking through the train station. He's wearing a fancy suit, not his zoo uniform, but we can still say it's Mr. Lion because Madame Gazelle is looking right in his direction. Maybe she's scared of him again? Another huge clue that Peppa really did have a sister before George is in the episode The Olden Days. In this story, Susie goes over to her best friend's house to play and brings an old photo showing herself as a baby, but Peppa doesn't recognize her friend at all. The two start arguing, and Peppa insists that she was never a baby, but Susie is right and explains that everyone was once very small. Even you! Peppa then goes to her mom and asks about it, and Mummy Pig shows her a photo of Peppa when she was just a newborn piglet. It's at that moment Daddy Pig steps in and says that picture was taken on the very first day the Pig family moved into their house. This makes Peppa curious, and Daddy Pig explains that when she was very little, the whole family moved to the place they live today. And if you pay really close attention, inside the car you'll see a very young piglet sitting in the back seat. You might even think that's Peppa, but there's proof that it's not possible. It's super simple to understand. Peppa couldn't have been sitting in the back seat like that because it's against the law. Very young children have to be in special car seats, and the Peppa series itself was once warned by authorities that if they show a child in the back seat, they need to make it very clear that the child is in a proper car seat. There's another clue. In the house's yard, there used to be a flower garden, but when Peppa asks where the flowers went, Daddy Pig replies that the soil in that house wasn't good enough for flowers. Of course, in a kid's cartoon, they're never going to say it straight out, but this is a clue that in the pig family, there's a problem with infertility. In other words, Mummy Pig has trouble having children. Want another clue? In that same episode, Daddy Pig is placing a flower pot on a shelf, but the flowers never made it there because the pot broke. In other words, the soil doesn't grow flowers, and even if it did, there wouldn't be a pot to hold them. All of this is a reference to a condition that Mummy Pig might have. Still on this part of the theory, have you ever seen the episode Time Capsule? Where, at the end, Madame Gazelle shows a videotape where we see Mommy Pig standing next to her future husband when they were children? Mommy Pig was wearing a floral dress, and this is a clue that her name is connected to flowers. We know this for sure because her sister, Aunt Dottie, wears a polka dot dress, and her name clearly refers to the pattern on her outfit. In the episode The Olden Days, it's Grandpa Pig who wants flowers in the garden. See the connection? Mummy Pig has a name linked to flowers, and her father plants flowers in a garden where they won't grow. This is a reference showing that in Mummy Pig's family, having children is difficult. It also suggests that maybe Aunt Dottie can't have children either, just like Chili's sister, who also lived far away. You know who doesn't need to keep their distance? You! So make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Bow. Another little thing that shows how Evie got a lot more design attention than all the other characters, both babies and the rest of the pig family, is her little yellow bow on her head. The vast majority of babies in the show are just mini versions of what they'll grow into later, and Peppa and George are great examples. The only difference between them is their height. But Evie has her bow, which is soon going to become pretty iconic. And that bow might stick around or not in the future. It depends on the reason it's even there. The accessory might be dropped by Evie once she gets a little older. If that happens, the bow would have been placed there specifically to break the usual trope of characters never really changing their style much even as they age. It would be super cute to watch an episode about Evie changing her style and swapping the bow for something else, like a really adorable hat. On the other hand, it's totally possible that the plan isn't to get rid of the bow after the youngest pig grows up, but that she'll wear it forever, especially since it's yellow, just like her duck. That might not break the baby look cliche, but at least it shows that Peppa's new little sister will have a style that's pretty unique compared to her sister and the other kids. Peppa Pig is just the best, right? So go ahead and subscribe to the channel to always get our videos about Peppa and other amazing cartoons. Outfit. It's funny that Evie loves little yellow ducks and also has a bow in that color because that made everyone think it must be her favorite color. And maybe it is her second favorite, or one of them, but there's another color that clearly has a special place in her heart, light green. What makes that super clear is the fact that the little jumpsuit Evie already wears at this age is exactly that color. George, ever since he was little, wore a blue jumpsuit, while Peppa had a red one, and they both kept wearing those colors as they grew up. The same goes for all the other kids. When they were little, they also wore outfits in the exact same colors as their future clothes. So Evie will definitely end up wearing a light green dress when she gets older, which will create a bit of a contrast with her yellow bow and her future duck toy. We believe that'll keep her from just looking like a mini version of Peppa, with only her size and dress color being different enough to tell them apart. You could say that her two favorite colors are yellow and light green, or do you think they're not tied and that she might actually prefer one over the other? Zodiac sign. Besides the things that happened on Evie's birthday, there's also the matter of her zodiac sign, which is also determined by the day she was born. Since she was born from Mommy Pig on May 20th, Evie is a Taurus, and if she'd been born just one day later, she would have been a different sign altogether. But it's a good thing she's a Taurus because they're known for being patient and stable, something we already kind of expected from the youngest sibling. She really has everything it takes to be the sister who brings Peppa and George together when they're fighting with each other. Actually, she'll probably do that for the whole family and everyone around her. Now, one trait of Taurians that her parents are definitely going to hate is their huge appetite. People born under this sign almost always eat until they're completely stuffed, so just imagine Evie Pig, who's a little piglet. She's going to have an insatiable hunger, and her parents will have to hustle to keep up with all that food. Something that happens a lot with youngest siblings is that they end up being super spoiled by their parents, who focus all their attention on them while expecting the older kids to just deal with it. Like we said, Peppa and George are definitely going to feel jealous of the baby because Mummy and Daddy Pig will be totally focused on him. But what if that little piglet does end up super spoiled? Then it's a whole different story, and the older siblings' jealousy might actually seem kind of fair. Just imagine having to live with a whiny little brother who cries every time he doesn't get his way and never listens to anyone. That would be rough. But luckily that phase will probably be temporary. After a few episodes of him being a total brat, we'll probably get a story where the baby learns to behave and follows the rules. A nice lesson for all the kids watching the show. At least that's what we're hoping for, because let's be honest, no one wants to sit through 400 episodes of the baby being a little jerk. Even after he stops being spoiled, Peppa's new baby brother will probably still find ways to drive her crazy, like getting totally obsessed with a kids show that she absolutely hates. If you've ever had to live with a toddler, then you know how wild they get when they latch onto a show. They want to watch it all the time and will cry nonstop if they can't. So if the baby gets hooked on a show with loud, repetitive songs, you can bet he'll watch it on a loop, over and over again, without a break. It'll drive Peppa, George, and even the parents completely nuts. But they'll have to just let the piglet watch until he finally gets sick of it. Honestly, a whole episode where the family is just trying to survive until that day comes would be hilarious to watch. Whenever a new baby joins the family, it's totally normal for even the more distant relatives to show up to meet them. After all, welcoming someone new into the family, someone who shares your blood, is always a big and special moment. So it's almost guaranteed we'll get to see a big family reunion with all the pig relatives, including the grandparents, aunts and uncles, and of course Peppa's cousins, Chloe Pig and baby Alexander. It would be so fun to see Alexander meet Peppa's new baby brother, since they're the closest in age among the pigs. Would they get into fights? Or maybe become best friends right away? And hey, are you gonna hit that subscribe button? You'd better, because once you do, you'll start getting all our latest videos about your favorite cartoons. It might not happen right away, but it's only a matter of time before the baby starts going to daycare, someplace where other people can watch him when no one else is available, not even the babysitter. He'll be surrounded by other little ones, like Alexander and Mummy Rabbit's twins. But we're also bound to meet a bunch of new babies we haven't seen yet, because daycares are always full. And let's be real, there's no way those are the only babies in town. It's totally possible that in the episode where Peppa's baby brother goes to daycare for the first time, we'll find out that one of the baby animals there actually belongs to a character we already know, someone we had no idea was even a mom. Unlike some family setups where the dad works and the mom stays home with the kids and takes care of the house, both Daddy and Mummy Pig have jobs, and they split the chores like cleaning, cooking, and looking after the kids. He works as an engineer, while she works on a computer. But that dynamic might change a bit with the arrival of the new baby, especially if Mummy Pig decides to leave her job so she can focus completely on him. A newborn needs a lot of attention, especially from their mom. And let's not forget, going through a whole pregnancy is already tough. It's not easy to keep working through all that, so it would make total sense for Mummy Pig to take a break from her career to focus on motherhood. And that also means something else. While Mummy Pig is focusing on the baby, Daddy Pig is going to have to work a lot harder to cover all the new expenses that come with a newborn. If any parents are watching this video, you know exactly what we mean. Taking care of a baby costs a fortune. There's food, diapers, bottles, toys, medicine, and so much more. To afford everything, Daddy Pig will have to go into full-on hustle mode, working overtime every single night. That means he'll be coming home completely exhausted, and you just know that'll lead to some hilarious moment where Peppa tries to wake him up, and he won't even open his eyes no matter what. But what if, and hear me out, what if Mummy Pig only has one baby? Yes, we know that's what everyone's expecting, and it's not even really a theory, just the most boring and predictable possibility of all. But what we're asking is, what if Mummy Pig only has one baby this time around? After all, it's not like she's suddenly going to lose the ability to get pregnant. So yes, she might just have one baby, Peggy, only to get pregnant again later and bring a fourth child into the family. That might actually be even more surprising than the twin theory, since no one would expect them to repeat the idea of her being pregnant again. And the best part? It wouldn't even take that long to happen. Pigs can safely get pregnant again not long after giving birth. Having the second pregnancy and baby revealed in the same season that Peggy is born is totally possible, and it would be awesome to see something like that happen. Now, who wouldn't be thrilled? Daddy and Mummy Pig, of course. Only someone who's been through it knows how hard pregnancy is and how challenging it is to care for a newborn. Can you imagine going through a surprise second pregnancy while still taking care of a newborn, and then suddenly having to raise two babies, all while dealing with the not-so-fun side effects of being pregnant like mood swings and weight gain? Meanwhile, Daddy Pig would have to work twice as hard to support the growing family, and neither parent would be able to get much sleep with two crying babies at home. Even Peppa and George would get pulled into the chaos, having to help their parents take care of the new little ones. Sure, that would happen anyway if Mummy Pig had twins, but it'd be even worse if it happened in back-to-back pregnancies, especially when no one was expecting it. That kind of surprise would definitely not be pleasant. And hey, if you want to surprise us, how about clicking that subscribe button? That way you'll never miss our daily videos about Peppa Pig and tons of other awesome cartoons. Still, the worst possible outcome for the little piggy family would be if Mummy Pig ends up having not just one or two babies, but many, many more. We're talking like 10 or even 14 piglets all at once. And believe it or not, that's actually very possible for the simple reason that Peppa's mom is a pig, just like Peppa herself and the rest of the family. Pigs are extremely fertile and can have that many piglets in a single pregnancy, so it's honestly kind of amazing that Mummy Pig has only had 2 kids this whole time. That is, unless she actually has had a bunch of other children we don't know about. But hey, we're not getting into that theory in this video. It could be that the fact the characters in the show have human traits makes Mummy Pig's pregnancy seem more like that of a regular person in our world. Still, she might actually have a way higher reproductive capacity than a human and only now show her true pig potential in this pregnancy by delivering a whole bunch of piglets all at once. If having 2 more kids would already be a lot to handle, imagine 10 at once. We're talking total chaos. But we're pretty sure the pig family would find a way to adjust and make things work with all the new little members. Have you noticed that Aunt Dottie is a lot like Bluey's aunt? Both live far away from their families and give the wrong toys to their nieces and nephews. In the case of Aunt Brandy, Chili's sister, the gift was zebra clothes for Bluey, even though the pup doesn't like that animal anymore, while Bingo got a leopard costume. No need to say it, right? Bingo went wild that day. But Aunt Brandy didn't do it on purpose. She just didn't know it was all wrong. But Aunt Dottie seems like she did it on purpose. She grew up in Peppa's town and knew very well that the place is full of steep hills. Giving that wheeled horse toy as a gift where one of her nieces or nephews could get hurt was cruel, especially if she knew her sister had lost a baby during a terrible time. So what's the big reason we're talking about Aunt Dottie now? It's actually very simple. This character met Daddy Pig before her younger sister did, and we know this because of that photo in Peppa's dad's office. But she wasn't the one who married him, and the reason must be that Aunt Dottie couldn't have children. How do we know this? It's even simpler to explain. In Peppa's world, pigs are an endangered species. There are no other pigs besides those in Peppa's family, and in this world, animals can't just let a species disappear. Maybe Aunt Dottie is very bitter and resents her sister for ending up with the pig she was in love with. What really happened is that Aunt Dottie couldn't be with Daddy Pig because pigs needed to have more babies. In Peppa's world, our little piglet has traveled to lots of places: Australia, the United States, and France. But in none of these countries are there other pigs. The reason is likely some illness that prevents the species from reproducing normally. And that's exactly why the show is about them. In the episode TV Studio, we learn that Miss Rabbit follows the pig family with a camera and that Peppa herself filmed the show's intro in that very studio. The whole world is watching Peppa and her family to see if they're okay. Even though Peppa Pig is a show for younger kids, there are still some things that need to make more sense with the real world. For example, there are plenty of Miss Rabbits all over the world, and that makes total sense because rabbits are animals that have lots of babies. It wouldn't be surprising at all for a rabbit to have 60 babies in her lifetime. For pigs, the number is lower, but still, it's interesting to point out that in the real world, Mummy Pig should have between 10 and 12 piglets. The same goes for Aunt Pig, who also only has 2 children, Cousin Chloe and baby Alexander. This proves that in Peppa's world, it's really strange that there are no other pigs. Most likely what happened is that this illness, which caused pigs to have fewer piglets, ended up affecting Mummy Pig's family too. And yes, She can have children, but it's a very difficult pregnancy. She and Daddy Pig might have been trying to have another baby since the very beginning of the series, but only now did it finally work out. In the case of Peppa's sister, sadly, the pregnancy didn't come to term, or maybe the lost little piglet was actually born, but was very sick, and unfortunately, didn't survive. This could also happen with a new piglet in the family, and we use George as an example. Even though he's still very young, it's clear that the little piglet has trouble communicating, and if Peppa's sister is born sick too, that would be really sad, but we'll only find out at the end of the year.
Now let's talk about something a lot of fans haven't noticed, something that shows how Evie is a totally different kind of character than you might expect. She was born in the same place as several members of the British royal family. The place chosen for Evie's birth was the maternity ward at St. Mary's Hospital in London. And that's surprising for a few reasons, which we'll explain right now. First, this is the exact same hospital where Prince William's 3 children were born: Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. That means Mummy and Daddy Pig spared no expense to give Evie the best comfort possible, because according to our info, this hospital is incredibly expensive for childbirth. It costs over $50,000 a day. That's a pretty big detail, right? It means the Pig family spent a lot of money for their new baby's birth. Did they borrow money from Miss Rabbit? Or could this be a big reveal that the Pig family is actually very rich? Or maybe there's another theory. What if it was the Queen herself who paid to bring Evie into the world? Remember what we told you about the meaning behind the name Evie? It's very possible this little piglet is way more important to the royal family than fans think. But don't worry, we're going to talk more about that in a bit, so stick with us. And what about you? Would you rather be a prince, a princess, or a piglet? Drop a comment with #pig so we can get to know ya. You probably remember that Mummy Pig's pregnancy was all over the internet and TV. And now that Evie has been born, the same thing is happening again. That's why you need to understand that Evie is a much bigger deal than fans might realize. The TV show Good Morning Britain was the one to share both announcements. First, that Mummy Pig was pregnant a few months ago, and now that Evie has finally arrived. The host said Daddy Pig personally shared the first pictures of the new character, and thanks to that show, the world got to see Evie for the very first time. The whole world saw it, and that might be because in Peppa's universe, her family seems to be the only remaining pigs. The biggest theory is that pigs are endangered and might soon disappear from this world, which is honestly kind of sad. That's why Evie's birth may represent hope. She could be the beginning of saving a species that's nearly gone. And that's also why her name means the desired one or long awaited, because Evie is proof that pigs might finally escape their tragic fate. First word. What's going to be Evie Pig's very first word? There's a pretty big clue hidden in what her siblings said. In Baby Alexander's episode, Peppa asks her parents what her own first word was. Mummy Pig said it was Mummy, while Daddy Pig, who clearly has a terrible memory, insists it was Daddy. George, of course, said dinosaur, so maybe it's finally time for someone to give Daddy Pig the honor. He's always been a little bummed that none of his kids had Daddy as their first word. That's definitely possible, but there's also a chance that Evie will copy George and say the name of her favorite toy, the panda. Could Evie's first word be panda? That would be adorable, even if it leaves Daddy Pig a little disappointed. But there's also one more word she might say first. What if Evie ends up saying Peppa? The new piggy is going to be super close to her older sister. They'll spend lots of time together, so it would be incredibly touching if Evie's first word was the name of the person she loves most in the world. Peppa. Do you really think that's going to happen? We hope so. Trip. Everyone knows the Pig family loves to travel. They've already been to America, France, Italy, and even Australia. Evie is definitely going to explore lots of new places around the world, and maybe her very first trip will be by boat. Grandpa Pig owns a boat, and he could take the whole family on a big sea adventure. They could visit different islands or even other countries. Maybe the Pig family could take Evie to see Aunt Dottie's house in the US. But why not travel by plane? Easy. A sea adventure would be way more exciting, and their newest little piggy would absolutely love it. Where do you think Evie's first trip will be? We already know you'll be joining us for every episode, so make sure to hit subscribe and hit that notification bell. Moon. Did you know Peppa and George already went to the moon? Grandpa Rabbit took them, along with Madame Gazelle and Granny Pig, on a trip to outer space. So maybe that's going to be one of Evie's adventures too. It wouldn't be fair if Evie never got to visit the moon, and that's exactly why we think the show will eventually send her to space as well. Of course, it'll still be Grandpa Rabbit flying the rocket, since he's the only one who has one. But don't worry, Evie won't be alone with a mad scientist. Grandpa Rabbit's harmless. He just wants to take the little piggy on a fun adventure, and you can bet Mummy Pig will go along for the ride. Still, it is a fair concern. After all, Grandpa Rabbit took Peppa to space without telling anyone. It was scary, but also hilarious. Will Evie enjoy the moon too? We'll find out in the next episodes. Bicycle. Evie is definitely going to learn to walk before she ever hops on a bike, but we think the episode where she learns how to ride is coming very soon. Yes, she'll be using training wheels to make sure she doesn't fall and hurt herself, and that's super important because once she sees Peppa riding a big girl bike, Evie is absolutely going to get jealous. That's when Peppa will have to explain to her little sister that she's not quite ready yet because she's still very young. Evie won't get it at first, but like we said before, the two sisters are going to be super close, and Peppa will probably be the one to teach her little sister how to ride a bike, which is just so sweet. Christmas. Evie is going to meet Santa Claus this year, and that's for sure, because she'll be getting her very first Christmas present. We think her first toy might even be delivered by Santa himself, and maybe she'll go on a magical sleigh ride with him, helping deliver gifts to her friends. This one's going to be a really special episode, so get ready for some holiday fun. Tooth. Evie will also get her very first tooth in one of the upcoming episodes when she finally manages to bite into an apple. But don't get confused, the Tooth Fairy isn't coming to visit her just yet, because we're not talking about losing a baby tooth, we're talking about her first one growing in. Still, do you think she might get a coin anyway? We'll find out in the next episodes.
The number one thing we can expect from Peppa Pig is baby behavior, at least for a while. Everybody knows that in Peppa Pig, time moves super slowly, and it's not going to be any different now. The new piglet will probably be a lot like baby Alexander, and the reason's pretty clear. The pig family is the only group of pigs in the whole world. You've never seen any pigs in the show that aren't close relatives of Peppa's, right? That means Peppa Pig will be waking up in the middle of the night over and over again, just like cousin Alexander. But don't worry, all babies do that, so it's no surprise that Pepper's going to cause a bit of chaos overnight. What will be unusual is if we find out she actually likes loud noises while she sleeps, just like her cousin Alexander. Another typical baby thing that could happen is her eating baby food for a while before she gets obsessed with pasta. But Peppa will have to do the airplane trick if she wants her baby sister to actually eat. Good thing Peppa already got some practice with her cousin. And of course, just like Alexander, the new piglet will cry a lot. All babies cry a ton before they start talking, and it won't be any different with this new little one. It's really important to understand that this new Peppa Pig character is also going to be used to talk about technology. Phones, computers, even video games. Yep, everyone loves those things. But they're only fun if you also enjoy other activities like soccer, swimming, or even reading books. Daddy Pig and Mummy Pig will be the most responsible parents in the world if they know how to balance screen time, not just for the new baby, but for Peppa and George too, whether it's TV or tablets. That's because Peppa Pig can actually help teach kids about staying healthy, and we'll talk more about that later on. One of the things that has to happen is for Peppa Pig to take her very first steps. Let's be super clear here. This new character only exists because the show needs to refresh its stories, especially now that Bluey, another super important cartoon, is introducing more babies into its storylines too. Peppa Pig will need to grow up a little and take her first steps soon, and the reason why is simple. It'll let us watch her go on all kinds of adventures with her sister. The episode where the new piglet takes her first steps will be something special because she's going to want to go outside and play with her sister. Peppa's favorite game is jumping in muddy puddles, and her baby sister will be sad that she can't join in. That's what will motivate her to try walking, and after a lot of effort, Peppa Pig will finally stand up and walk out the door all by herself, surprising everyone. And that's when the new piglet will start jumping in the mud right alongside her big sister and George in the backyard puddles. And here's a surprise for you. We've got new videos every single day on the channel. Just hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Peppa Pig is a kid's show that always tries to share meaningful lessons in a fun way. Take Mandy Mouse, for example, a little girl who uses a wheelchair but still shows that she can live a totally normal and active life. With the new baby piglet, we believe the message will be all about sports. Shows like Peppa Pig should teach younger audiences how important it is to get up and move. That's why Peppa Pig will be super active during playtime. She's going to love soccer, swimming, jumping, and running around. The creators are hoping that this will inspire fans to want to get outside and be active too. Have you heard the theory in Bluey that Bingo might not be able to eat gluten? It's very possible that Peppa Pig will use the new baby sister to teach fans about healthy eating. Yes, the show already does that a bit with Mr. Potato, but maybe it's time to introduce a character who's closer to the main family and who needs a better diet to show kids that eating too much sugar and junk food isn't cool. And let's be honest, having a pig who can't eat everything would be kind of genius, don't you think? Mummy Pig will be cooking super tasty and healthy meals for her new daughter, and fans might even feel like trying more carrots, tomatoes, and even potatoes themselves. The arrival of a brand new character will probably bring Aunt Dottie back to England, and this time Mummy Pig's sister will be bringing a special present for her new niece. The first time we ever heard about Aunt Dottie, she gave Peppa and George a pretty dangerous toy, a wheeled horse with no brakes. In a town full of steep hills, that's not exactly safe, but since Aunt Dottie already realized her mistake, we can assume she'll pick something safer this time. Maybe she'll give her niece something that encourages her to stay in one spot, something super fun, like a remote-controlled airplane. That way, Pepper would have a toy that moves, but she could play with it calmly and safely, far away from any risky hills. But will that actually work? Maybe a doll would be better, don't you think? It might even be Aunt Dottie who gives her a fairy Holly doll, since she lives in the United States. And in the New York City episode, we actually see a poster of the Holly character in Times Square.
Little liar. Now, one thing we could totally see happening after the little girl says her first words is her developing the not-so-great habit of lying. As she learns to talk, Evie could say anything, but she still won't have learned that we should always tell the truth. Because of that, she's probably going to tell lie after lie just for fun, thinking it's hilarious to trick people, and this will quickly turn into a big problem. All of this could be solved in a single episode, or it might become a recurring joke for the character over the next few episodes. Still, we believe that sooner or later, there will be an episode where Evie learns that lying is wrong and finally stops doing it. Career break. As we've already made pretty clear, the entire pig family is going to be affected by this birth, even Evie's uncles and cousins. But it's undeniable that there's one person who's going to have their life impacted more than anyone else by far. Obviously, we're talking about Mummy Pig. After all, she's the one who had to go through months of pregnancy with her body permanently changed. She's going to be really tired, and recovering from childbirth will take about a few weeks. And as if that weren't enough, Mummy Pig has the most important role in Evie's growth, since she'll need to breastfeed her and give her tons of attention. All of this leads us to one conclusion. During this pretty chaotic phase, Mummy Pig will have to make the decision to stop working for a while. She makes money by writing on the computer. We're not exactly sure what kind of writer Peppa's mom is, but it must be a job that requires a lot of mental effort, something she won't be able to manage if she's always exhausted because of her new little one. The main source of income for the household will probably be Daddy Pig, since he's an engineer, so that won't be too much of a problem. The real issue is that, like we already mentioned, Daddy is going to have to work extra hours to cover all the new baby expenses, and that will be even more necessary if his wife needs to stop working. The cold. Remember when George caught a cold after playing in the rain? Yeah, poor thing really suffered in that episode. The sad part is that this will inevitably also happen to Evie. After all, she's a newborn and doesn't have antibodies yet. At that age, we're super fragile and get sick from pretty much anything, so she'll end up getting sick now and then. And this definitely won't happen off-screen. The Peppa Pig production team takes every possible theme and turns it into an episode, and this time will be no different. So we're probably gonna see a sort of remake of George's cold episode, only this time with Evie in the middle child spot. Will she be as stubborn as her brother was in that story and insist on playing in the rain without proper protection? Or will she catch a cold some other way? As you can tell, we love coming up with theories about your favorite animated shows here on this channel. So how about subscribing so you never miss any of our videos? Big Eater. Remember when we said that Evie has a pretty big chance of becoming a little liar, at least for a while? Well, of course, that's not going to be the only trait the little piglet will have. As she grows up, she'll develop lots of other characteristics too, since her personality will keep evolving more and more. We can't say for sure all the ideas the writers are keeping from us, but one of them is possibly that Evie is going to be quite the big eater. One clue is that she was born on May 20th, which means she's a Taurus, and Taurians are known for being huge food lovers. The funny thing is that anyone born between April 21st and May 20th is a Taurus. So, Evie was born on the very last possible day to be a Taurus. Do you think the team behind Peppa Pig picked that exact date just so we'd notice the coincidence and give her zodiac sign even more attention? Vacation. Having a new baby around is definitely going to cause a lot of stress for the pig family. You can imagine it, right? Crying through the night, changing diapers, and all of that. Everyone is going to get stressed out, but that might actually be the motivation for the whole family, at some point, to decide to take a vacation in another country. The show has already had more than one storyline with multiple episodes where that happens, like the time they traveled to Italy, and another when they went to the United States. What country do you think will be Evie's first vacation trip? It'd be really cool if it were Paris, for example. According to the official Peppa Pig website, Evie's relationship with her siblings will have its ups and downs. The site itself says that Peppa and George will have mixed feelings about their new sister, but overall, both of them are really excited. Peppa is happy to be an even older sister now, and she's thrilled that the new baby is a girl. Since they're both girls, Peppa and Evie are expected to have a stronger bond, and Peppa will have lots to teach her little sister.
Now that George is no longer the youngest, many people believe he might struggle a bit, since their parents will probably give more attention to baby Evie. But it's important to point out that the website says both piglets are very excited to welcome their new sister. The real concern now is baby Alexander. He's no longer the youngest pig in the pig family. Could he get jealous of his new cousin Evie? On May 30th, 2025, in theaters across the UK, Evie will officially join the series in a special episode titled Peppa Meets the Baby. This story is being shown in movie theaters because it's such an important moment for the show. So it's pretty much guaranteed that thousands of people will show up to watch. That day marks the very first official meeting between fans and Evie when the entire pig family travels to London, since we already know that's where she was born. Starting from this date, May 30th, the show will begin airing new episodes featuring Evie's adventures, with her arrival in the city being celebrated with a big party. The town's television station, which is run by Miss Rabbit, will also broadcast Evie's arrival in the series. Because of that, the entire show is going to change a lot. Maybe even the setting itself, since there's a good chance the pig family will move to London, the capital of England. And you could live right here in our hearts by subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. It wasn't just TV that reported on Evie's birth, it was also announced on the streets of London by a royal town crier. A man dressed in a red ceremonial uniform covered in medals appeared in the streets of London to share the news. He rang a bell to get everyone's attention, and people stopped to listen. On the official announcement board, it read, "Mummy and Daddy Pig, along with Peppa and George, are delighted to announce the birth of baby Evie." And it also said, "Evie was born at 5:34 in the morning, and both she and Mummy Pig are doing well." The town crier ended the announcement by saying, "Long live Evie," while the crowd clapped. That's pretty curious because people usually say that about members of the royal family, especially those in line for the throne. Another important detail in this announcement revealed something else. You might not know this, but families who are very wealthy or powerful often have something called a family crest. It's a special symbol that represents the members of a rich and powerful group. During the announcement of Evie's birth, we can see that the pig family has a crest. It's divided into 4 parts: a duck representing the place where the pigs live, a dinosaur symbolizing George, Teddy the bear representing Peppa, and a muddy puddle, speaking to pigs all over the world. There are also images of Peppa and George on the crest. Putting all these clues together, it's pretty safe to say that Evie is important because she's actually next in line for the throne, at least in the cartoon. Let's do a quick recap. 1. Her name is Evie, which means she was long awaited by many. 2. She was born in the same hospital as the princes of England. 3. The royal town crier said "Long live Evie" like he was announcing a future queen. 4. In the world of Peppa Pig, the current queen lives alone. She doesn't have any heirs in the show. And finally, the whole world, both online and on TV, is talking about this. That's probably why Evie is such a big deal. She's part of the royal family. But wait, doesn't that mean George and Peppa are royal too, since they're her siblings? That's a little tricky to answer. Maybe that's why we never see Daddy Pig's parents. They could be really important figures. And if you've ever watched any show about kings and queens, you'll understand that choosing the next ruler isn't always so simple. Evie might be the chosen one for reasons only royal experts understand. But you have to admit, even Peppa didn't get this much attention when she was born. Could that cause problems in the future? Now let's show you some new details about this character. Evie seems to be a piglet who really loves the color yellow. According to the pictures Daddy Pig shared on TV, she wears a yellow hair bow. This probably means that as she gets a little older, Evie will wear a yellow dress to help tell her apart from her big sister, Peppa. So now you know that Evie is going to be a slightly different kind of piglet, and she'll probably keep wearing those little bows in her hair. Now stick around here on the channel. We've picked out 2 more videos for everyone to enjoy. We'll see you in the next one. Catch you later. Mr. Cat. Have you ever noticed that Mr. Cat, Candy's dad, has a habit of traveling far away without his family? Before we show you the proof, it's important to point out that sometimes his fur changes from light to dark. But we're still talking about the same character because he's clearly Candy Cat's dad and Mrs. Cat's husband. You can spot him alone at a train station in another city. And the same thing happens in New York. Mr. Cat is on the same flight as the pig family and later shows up walking the streets in a hat, checking out the stores. Just remember, we're talking about the same guy. Yes, his color changes, but he's still Candy's dad, and he really loves to travel solo. Maybe it's part of his job. Aunt Dottie. Aunt Dottie was a hidden character for over 10 years. She finally showed up in the Thanksgiving episode in 2024, but fans have known about her since season 4. For years, people thought she was Daddy Pig's sister because there's an old photo of 2 piglets in his office. But when Aunt Dottie actually appeared, we found out that she's Mummy Pig's sister. That still doesn't make much sense, since the show never mentioned that Mummy Pig had a sister. Now we know she lives in the United States because she traveled to England to celebrate Thanksgiving, which is an American holiday. And one of the biggest mysteries is the fact that she gave her nieces and nephews a ride-on horse as a gift. That toy is super dangerous in a town full of hills where accidents could easily happen. Does Dottie even like her nieces and nephews? Mrs. Badger. Mrs. Badger is one of the most hidden characters in the entire show, and there's still a big mystery surrounding her. In the episode The Tractor, Daddy Pig takes Peppa and George to visit Mrs. Badger's farm, but here's the problem. Mrs. Badger doesn't really hang out with the other characters on the show. You know it too. It's rare to see her talking to the other townsfolk. And the real mystery is, if Mrs. Badger isn't close to the pig family, why do they trust her to stay alone with the kids? That's definitely not something normal. But it's normal to have new videos here every day. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Mr. Gazelle. Madame Gazelle's husband is another hidden character that many people forget about, but he might actually be a big threat. There's a picture of him inside Madame Gazelle's house wearing a fancy suit and a top hat. But this same character also appears in another painting at the town's museum, wearing an old military uniform. That uniform was worn by soldiers more than 200 years ago, which means Madame Gazelle and her husband might be extremely old, maybe even centuries old. And Mr. Gazelle could be dangerous because he might still be alive. If the theory that he's a vampire is true, that would make him a villain. Are you afraid of vampires? Susie's dad. Susie's dad is another character who's hidden in the series. We know he exists because Susie was born, but is he still alive? Susie dreams of becoming a nurse. In the episode Future, she even draws a picture of herself dressed as one, and she says she wants to work in a hospital. The theory is that Susie's dad might have passed away, or he's really sick, and that's why our favorite little sheep wants to take care of people. Will we ever see this character on screen? Mr. Labrador. Mr. Labrador is one of the hidden characters who barely speaks to anyone, but he's also one of the biggest travelers in the world. He shows up in a neighboring city, playing a drum with a marching band while they wait for the pig family at a train station. He also appears in New York, walking around Times Square in a colorful shirt. And he's spotted near the hotel, where the pig family stays while exploring the city. Not to mention, this guy clearly loves visiting Paris, France. Check him out sipping coffee at a cafe. The Giraffes. Another set of hidden characters is the giraffe family. They're so tall that the whole town should be able to see them from far away, but somehow they're almost never around. Where could they be? Gerald Giraffe's dad works at the zoo, and his mom works at the town's restaurant. If they're that tall, then why do we barely see any of them? Freddie Fox's dad is one of the most mysterious and even dangerous characters in Peppa's world. That's because everyone knows he's kind of a criminal. In the episode where we first see Mr. Fox's shop, there are a ton of things to look at, but one detail really stands out: the glass bottles with ships inside them in the background. Everyone remembers those belonged to Grandpa Pig's collection. And we even know exactly when Freddie's dad took those bottles. It happened in the episode Night Animals, when Mr. Fox was in Grandpa Pig's backyard. That night, Mr. Fox was trying to steal Grandpa Pig's chickens, but once he got caught, he changed his plan. Since Grandpa wasn't home, Mr. Fox went up to the attic and took his bottle collection. One of the biggest mysteries is how he manages to sell so many things around town that aren't even his without getting caught by the police. Mr. Labrador Dog, who works with Mr. Bull, isn't one of the main characters in the show, but he's definitely mysterious. Let's start with the fact that he's a dog with a defined breed, a Labrador. But in Peppa's world, no one else has a specific breed, not even Peppa herself. The show never explains what kind of pig Peppa and her family are, and when it comes to dogs, Danny's family is just called dogs. So why is Mr. Labrador treated differently from the rest? There might be a clue. Labradors are hunting dogs, and maybe he's actually a spy. In the episode where Peppa and her family travel to Paris, Mr. Labrador is wearing a colorful shirt and chatting with a goat character. In reality, he's probably spying on the pig family. We know he's in disguise because in Peppa's world, the characters never change clothes. So why is he suddenly dressed differently? And why did he show up in the exact same place the pig family was visiting? That's weird. You know what's not weird? Subscribing to the channel and turning on the notification bell. Don't miss out. Come join the club.
Brilliant!
Mrs. Badger is another super mysterious character. She owns a farm near Peppa's town. In the tractor episode, Daddy Pig seems to know her pretty well. He even leaves Peppa and George at the farm with her. But Mrs. Badger pops up in several episodes and no one ever talks to her. She also appears at the Kids Festival, where all the children who visited her farm are playing, and still no one speaks to her. What's strange is that the parents totally trust her to take care of the kids. In this scene, we see Edmund Elephant running after Mrs. Badger along with a few friends. They're all really young, even younger than Peppa, and really far away from their parents. That's odd. No parent would let a total stranger watch over their kids like that. Does Mrs. Badger have magical powers or something? The entire rabbit family is mysterious, but the one with the most secrets is Grandpa Rabbit. He's 100 years old, and everyone knows rabbits don't usually live that long, plus he's a total science genius. He built a machine that works as both a boat and an airplane. Yes, he really built it himself. And that's not all. Grandpa Rabbit also has a rocket that can fly to the moon. He used it to take Grandma Pig, Peppa, and George all the way into space. Rockets are super expensive, and there's no way the government would allow someone just to own one and use it to fly kids to the moon without permission. So how does Grandpa Rabbit have access to all these amazing machines? That's a huge mystery. Mrs. Crocodile is the only reptile in the entire show, and that's already the biggest mystery about her. Where did she come from, and why are all the other characters mammals? Will the creators of the show ever explain that? And to make things even more mysterious, she works at the zoo, taking care of the animals. That sounds like a dangerous situation waiting to happen. Pirate Redbeard is another strange and suspicious character in Peppa's town. The first mystery is that he's a human being, and in this cartoon, there aren't many regular people. Another weird detail, he's part of a totally different show, Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom, created by the same people behind Peppa Pig. We still don't know if Pirate Redbeard can travel between universes, but if he can, that's a pretty powerful ability. Another mystery, he used to be the owner of Polly, Grandpa Pig's parrot. We find this out during the Kids Festival, where yet another mystery pops up. The whole party is themed around Redbeard's face. Why does Peppa's town have an entire festival dedicated to Pirate Redbeard? That's super sketchy. Just like Family Guy, there's another adult animated show called American Dad. The storyline follows a family where the dad is a super spy and they have hilarious adventures while hiding an alien who's in disguise to avoid the government. This alien's name is Roger, and in episode 21 of season 16, he makes a reference to Peppa Pig, saying he has a custom wallet with Peppa Pig's face on it. It's just a simple joke without any dark undertones, but it's pretty cool to see another show referencing our favorite pink pig. If you've never seen Chippendale Rescue Rangers, you're missing out on one of the most entertaining films out there. This movie shows two chipmunks who were once huge cartoon stars, but now they're struggling in their careers. The film is packed with references to other movies and memes like Ugly Sonic, the original design for Sonic the Hedgehog before the 2020 movie. You might remember that no one liked that design, so the producers had to change it. But the reference to Our Pink Pig appears when a police officer mentions that Peppa Pig disappeared the previous year, and a squad of soldiers stormed Nickelodeon Studios to rescue her. However, the Paw Patrol fought back, and some officers were injured. Can you imagine the chaos? Now, to make sure Paw Patrol or Ugly Sonic don't come after you, it's best to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There's a popular Australian cartoon among adults called Anna Munch, and unlike Bluey, this animation isn't meant for the whole family. They create short comedy sketches, just a few seconds long, designed to get laughs and sometimes even surprise viewers. In one episode, Peppa Pig visits a doctor, and the doctor explains that she's not doing well. Everyone knows one of the jokes about Peppa is her eyes, which look like they're on the sides of her head. The doctor references this, saying it's a result of a dangerous mutation and that she needs surgery. Peppa gets worried and asks what happens if the surgery doesn't go well, and the episode ends with the townsfolk buying pork at the butcher shop. We'll give you a moment to recover from that shock. Got a quick question for you. Do you know how to fill up your party with pretty girls? Just get a Peppa Pig piñata. Or at least that's what we learn on a hilarious puppet channel called Super Mario Logan, or simply SML. On this channel, the host uses puppets based on characters from the Super Mario Bros. Games. In one episode, a big party is about to happen, and Bowser Jr. says that to get girls to come, they need to buy something cool. And since girls love Peppa Pig, a Peppa Piñata seems like the perfect choice. So girls, does your crush send you Peppa videos? There's another YouTube channel called Annoying Orange, where a talking orange lives in a kitchen and goes on all sorts of adventures around the city with his friends. In one episode, he meets Peppa Pig and goes with her to a street fair. Did the little piggy end up there because she was bought at the butcher's? Peppa is also famous on TV series. One of the most watched shows in the world is The Big Bang Theory. In episode 18 of season 11, Bernadette, who is already a mother, is talking to Amy about having kids. When Amy asks what she's watching on TV, Bernadette explains that in homes with children, they only watch cartoons like Bob the Builder, Dinosaur Train, and Peppa Pig. She even says the little pig is fun and educational. Don't be fooled into thinking the edgy jokes are over. There's another Peppa Pig reference in a cartoon that manages to be much darker than Family Guy. We're talking about South Park, created by Trey Parker and Matt Stone for Comedy Central. This show was built as an adult comedy series focused on the mischievous adventures of 4 friends, Stan, Kyle, Eric, and Kenny. In one episode of season 21, there's a 10-year-old girl's birthday party. It's when one of the characters, Marcus, gets a phone call saying that Peppa Pig showed up at the party and went overboard with some illegal substance until she passed out. The funny part is, when everyone arrives at the house and sees the scene of Peppa Pig lying on the floor, they find out that it's not the actual pig, but just a regular man dressed as Peppa Pig in a costume for the party. Another character who might have more money than most is Daddy Rabbit. He's probably not actually rich, but there's evidence that he's in a pretty good financial situation. Besides working in an office with Daddy Pig, Daddy Rabbit also has a few side jobs. He's a construction inspector, museum artifact appraiser, botanist, train captain, and road inspector. He doesn't work as much as Miss Rabbit, his sister-in-law, but he still handles more jobs than most people, which has to bring in a good salary. Could working more than usual be something in the Rabbit family's blood? Or is it just a big coincidence that 2 of the rabbits in the show have multiple jobs? Mr. Fox is a vendor, and his van is packed with a huge variety of items for sale. Supposedly, every item in the world can be found in his van, which means his vehicle might have magical properties. If that's not the case, it means that Mr. Fox simply has a lot of money to buy so many items, and since he buys these objects to sell, he must be selling them at a higher price to make a profit. In other words, he must have a lot of money in his bank account. We've also talked about the theory that Mr. Fox might be a thief, stealing things to sell. If that's true, his profit would be much higher, since it would mean he's not spending any money to get his stock. But let's hope Mr. Fox is making his money honestly, just like Miss Rabbit. After all, I'm sure his son and wife would be really disappointed if they found out they were being supported by dirty money. In the Peppa Pig world, there are some supernatural beings like the Tooth Fairy and Father Christmas himself. Father Christmas in the series, just like the legends in our world, makes toys for all the good children in the world and delivers them on Christmas Eve. He has a workshop at the North Pole stocked with enough materials to make billions of gifts, which undoubtedly makes him one of the wealthiest characters in this universe. In his workshop, there are many elves working on creating presents. We don't know if they're paid, but since Father Christmas is a fair guy, they probably are. This makes him a sort of real businessman, with the difference that he doesn't receive any payment in exchange for gifting children, and he's been doing this for at least 100 years. In other words, Father Christmas has been using up his fortune to make children happy on Christmas, yet his money doesn't seem to be running out. Could he have saved up so much money from other work in the past that he doesn't even need to worry about going broke? It's also curious that the few human characters in Peppa Pig are all rich. Could this mean that the human elite were among the few to survive some kind of extinction or something similar? I think that would explain a lot. In fact, maybe Father Christmas could be the Queen's brother. This would explain his fortune. As a member of British royalty, he'd also be entitled to receive an annual income, which would be enough to keep supporting his North Pole toy workshop and his elf employees. Before we continue, why not hit the subscribe button to keep getting daily content about Peppa Pig and your favorite cartoons? We really appreciate your support. One of the wealthiest characters in Peppa Pig has to be Mr. Potato. After all, he's an extremely famous host in Peppa's world, and all the characters in the show watch his program. His face even shows up in Times Square in the episode where Peppa visits New York City, something that usually only happens with worldwide celebrities. As a star, Mr. Potato surely earns a very high salary. A famous Hollywood star earns around $20 to $40 million a year, and that's not even counting all the commercials he probably does. Each ad he appears in likely brings in big money for brands, which means he must be making a good amount from those deals as well. There are 2 living potatoes in Peppa Pig, and surprisingly, both of them are very rich. Super Potato, like Mr. Potato, is also extremely popular and hosts a TV show that's widely watched by the characters in the series. Even Mama Pig memorizes the lines from his episodes. Because of this, he likely earns a hefty salary and also probably makes a lot of money doing commercials for all sorts of products. As we mentioned, a famous Hollywood star makes around $20 to $40 million, but I bet Super Potato will only keep growing in fame and making even more. Super Potato also starred in a movie called Vegetables in Space, which probably paid him way more than his TV show does, especially since the movie was made in Hollywood, the heart of the world's biggest productions. If that doesn't convince you he's filthy rich, then nothing else will. The video is almost over, but we've left 2 amazing videos on your screen so you can keep enjoying. We're sure you'll love them, so just click on one. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.